Chris Gunsberg, Owen Hilliard, Gregory Herford, Charles Jekyll, Jonathan Jow, Dylan Ma, Edward Mendel, Benedict de Matadezira, Mason Rozak, Ellie Sachs, Christian Sanford, Philip Spurn, Maxwell Victorino, and Chen Yang.
Thank you, Mary. Ken?
Thank you. Please join the Westfield High School Counseling Department for a series of evening forums to help students and parents navigate the high school years and plan for post-secondary options. Westfield High School students are also invited to Thursday Table Talks, a new program offered by the Westfield High School Counseling Department that offers students the chance to engage with counselors on a variety of topics during their lunch periods. The schedule of evening programs, along with information on Thursday Table Talks, is posted on the Westfield High School Counseling page and then under News on the district website. Thank you.
Thank you, Kent. Brendan?
Sure thing. Congratulations to girls varsity volleyball coach Bev Torok on her recent 500th win. Coach Torok is just the third coach in Westfield High School history to reach 500 wins in a single sport. This is the second meeting in a row that we get to recognize Bev Torok.
Kristen?
At their first competition of the season, the Westfield High School Marching Band tied for first place with John P. Stevens High School to receive the highest score of the 12 performing bands. The Marching Blue Devils also earned the highest scores for Best Visual and Best Effects at the New Jersey Marching Band Directors Association competition in Piscataway on October 7th. This weekend, they will travel to the NJMBDA contest in East Brunswick, followed by the Bands of America Regional at Rutgers University and the NJMBDA State Championships held at the College of New Jersey on the last weekend of October. Congratulations and good luck to our Marching Blue Devils.
Thank you, Kristen. CJ?
The casts, crews, and theater directors at Edison and Roosevelt Intermediate Schools and Westfield High School are busy rehearsing for their upcoming fall productions. Visit the district website for more information and mark your calendars for the following. Roosevelt Intermediate School presents William Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream with a matinee performance at 4 p.m. on Thursday, October 26th, and an evening performance at 7 p.m. on Friday and again on Saturday, October 27 and 28. Please be sure to notice the character Moth, who's played by my daughter, in that production. The Edison Theater Department will present Puffs, or 7 Increasingly Eventful Years at a certain School of Magic and Magic. A matinee of this parody of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter will be held on Thursday, November 2nd at 4 p.m., with evening performances on Friday, November 3rd, and Saturday, November 4th at 7 p.m. The Westfield High School Theater Department will present Antigone, an adaptation based on one of the great Greek tragedies by Sophocles. A matinee performance will be held on Thursday, November 16 at 4 p.m., followed by evening performances on Friday and Saturday, November 17 and 18 at 7:30 p.m.
Thank you, CJ. Sahar?
Over the summer, 13 former 8th grade students at Edison Intermediate School were notified that they were regional winners in last spring's New Jersey Math League competition. The students, now in 9th grade, received the highest score among all Union County student competitors. Congratulations to the following students and their Math League advisors, Julia Torciello and Jacqueline Nascimento, who are both math teachers at Edison. And the following students are Annalise Bond, Elias Chang, Alex Fu, Kira Lukashenko, Justin O, Vivian Parech, Michael Prestupa, Evie Chen, Vivian Zhu, Zhou Zhu, Claire Yang, Leah Zaitman, and Benjamin Zhu. Congratulations.
Thank you. Layla?
5 Westfield High School 12th grade students earned perfect scores on subject area tests of the June 2023 ACT. Catherine Kingary, who we just recognized, earned a perfect score on the overall ACT, along with perfect scores on the science, STEM, and reading subject tests. Earning perfect scores on the reading subject test are Nicholas Bartlett, Leon Berganza, Akshat Garg, and Anna Salvato. Congratulations to all.
Thank you, Layla. Rob?
I have two. First, Westfield Public Schools will be closed on Thursday, November 9th and Friday, November 10th for teacher professional days consistent with the NJEA convention. Additionally, students in pre-kindergarten through grade 5 only will have early dismissal on Monday, November 6th and Tuesday, November 7th. All students will have early dismissal on Wednesday, November 8th as staff meets for an in-service afternoon. I got the good one for the kids, apparently. The next regular public meeting of the Board of Ed will be on Tuesday, November 21st in Cafeteria B at Westfield High School, beginning at 7 p.m. The meeting will be live streamed via the district YouTube channel, which viewers can access on the board tab on the district website. The complete agenda will be available on Friday, November 17th, also on the board tab.
Thank you, Rob. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Gonzalez for a report by district administration.
Thank you. This evening, I just have a few topics that I'd like to address as part of my superintendent report before handing it over to members of the Office of Curriculum Instruction to do their annual report of state assessments from the spring of 2023. To begin, I'd like to talk about the school self-assessment for determining HIB grades for the previous school year. Each school, through its safety and climate team, is required to evaluate its implementation of the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights from June of the current year, of the prior year, through the end of the school year, using a self-assessment tool that's provided by the New Jersey Department of Education. The tool includes 8 core elements that address the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights requirements for schools, and the teams must assign a rating for each indicator based upon the criteria and available documentation. The 8 core elements that make up the grade are as follows. The first is HIB programming. Second is training on HIB policy. Third is other staff instruction and training. Fourth is curriculum and instruction on HIB and related information. Fifth is related to HIB personnel. Sixth is school-level HIB reporting. Seventh is HIB investigative procedure. And then eighth is HIB reporting. All of that combines to create a grade for each school. And then new for this year is data, includes data regarding the preliminary determination. The preliminary determination defines the number of times the principal or a designee in the school made the preliminary determination that an incident or complaint was outside the scope of HIB and did not need to be investigated as HIB during the prior school year. The results of the assessments, ranging from a grade of 60 all the way up to 74 out of a total of 78 possible points, are included on tonight's agenda and will be used by our schools and counselors to identify areas for growth and consistency. Through the support of this board and the positive budget vote from last year, we're fortunate to have additional and dedicated counselors at each school who will work with their colleagues within and across the schools to redouble our efforts to implement the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights. If you have any questions about what is being done at your child's school to support an environment free of harassment, intimidation, and bullying, please reach out to your principal and guidance counselor for additional information. I'd like to now move on to the Week of Respect, Red Ribbon Week, and Violence Awareness Week. October is a busy time of year for school districts throughout the state implementing activities in support of each of these weeks. These annual recognitions are expected to be observed age appropriately in all schools throughout New Jersey. Beginning with the Week of Respect, state statute requires that all public school districts designate the week beginning with the first Monday in October of each year as the Week of Respect in the state of New Jersey. Additionally, New Jersey's Week of Respect coincides with National Bullying Prevention Month, which is annually observed in October. State statute also requires that the week beginning the third Monday of October in each year be designated as School Violence Awareness Week in New Jersey. This week affords a great opportunity for school districts to bring staff, students, parents, and law enforcement together to be active participants in the important work of violence prevention and school safety. Last but not least, we have Red Ribbon Week, which is a week that's sponsored by the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, in which we highlight the importance of living a drug-free life. It presents an opportunity for parents, educators, and communities to reinforce the drug-free message and share with their children throughout the year. Some examples of activities that took place throughout the year, throughout this month, include at Lincoln Early Childhood Center. The school encouraged students and parents to attend to the counselors section of the principal's newsletters, where they were able to gather information and activities about what took place during the Week of Respect. In Franklin School emphasized community through buddy classes and discussions on kindness and respect. In Jefferson Elementary School, morning announcements focused on respect and a special lesson for first graders on the topic. McKinley School had students participating in the Hands Are for Helping activity, pledging to keep McKinley safe, whereas Tamaulipas Elementary School also involved students in participating in a number of activities, dressing up to show respect during Spirit Week. At the intermediate level, we also had Spirit Week activities assigned to theme days, promoting different aspects of respect and violence awareness. And we also had sidewalk chalk art by 8th grade peer leaders promoting positive concepts for our students. And of course, at the high school, as reported, hosts Thursday table talks as a means to prevent anti-bullying during the Week of Respect. We also had an upstander pledge encouraging students to be upstanders against bullying. They held a No Place for Hate meeting during the week, and during school violence weeks, they introduced the Gaggle Threat Line, which promotes the opportunity for students to be able to report concerns through an anonymous mechanism that would be reviewed by the administration. During the Week of Respect, Red Ribbon Week, and the Violence Awareness Week, we also have the opportunity, as I mentioned, to be able to showcase the resources that we have through the guidance counselors that have been added to each of our schools as dedicated resources and as additional resources through our student assistance coordinators at each of the secondary schools. Moving on, I'd like to issue a statement or share a statement regarding the past week and concerns that I've received from members of the community regarding my recent communication. During that time, I received a number of emails. Some people thanked me. Others said my statement did not go far enough and that words matter. And I agree. Words do matter. As the superintendent of a school district with nearly 6,000 students and 900 staff members, my primary responsibility is to ensure the safety and well-being of all those students and staff in an environment that aligns with the mission of our district to educate all. It is my firm belief that my personal feelings about matters outside the jurisdiction of the school district on any given topic have no place in any of my communications with the school community. And since words matter, I choose to use my words, not to elevate violence and hate, but rather to focus my attention, to focus our attention on what matters most in our district. And what matters is what we as a school district are doing to support all students and staff. This is a responsibility I take very seriously and I'm 100% committed to uphold. As in the past, now and moving forward, our school counselors, administrators, and educators will work with our students to assist them during this difficult time.
What are your outside views?
I'd like to move on now.
I'd like to ask the public to refrain from calling out. It's disruptive and it doesn't continue with our meeting. You will have a time to speak during public comment. You will have a time to speak during public comment.
I'd like to move on now to the 2023-2028 Strategic Plan Overview. In June, the board approved the overarching goals and objectives that will guide us forward for the next 5 years and beyond. Over the summer, the administration had identified key outcomes that we could reasonably achieve within the next 5 years. Recognizing that this work is in addition to and not in place of the other work we must do to run the district, we are extremely cognizant of how much we take on all at once. Over the course of the implementation of this plan, the administration will work closely with the Board of Education to further develop timelines and deliverables to guide future decisions around staffing, programs, facilities, budgets, and referendums. Tonight, I formally present the Strategic Plan Year 1, which includes an overview of the mission, purpose, process, goals, objectives, outcomes, Year 1 activities, and progress monitoring indicators. Details and activities for years 2 through 5 will depend on the progress and outcomes of the prior year. Therefore, each year, the board will review and approve the activities planned for each respective year. While a public-facing PDF on the strategic plan is available in the agenda and is posted on the strategic plan portal on the website, we also produce this 8-minute video to help explain the process and the plan, and we look forward to providing you with updates during board meetings and our newsletter about the progress we are making in each area. Ms. McGinn?
Welcome to the Westfield Public Schools, where our long-standing tradition of excellence remains evident in our outstanding academic instruction, experienced and dedicated staff, award-winning visual and performing arts program, championship athletic teams, and students who are committed to their learning and each other. Hello, I'm Dr. Raymond Gonzalez, proud superintendent of the Westfield Public School District, and I'm excited to share our 5-year strategic plan with you. There are many opportunities for growth as we build upon our tradition of excellence, and that's where our strategic plan comes in.
I believe this strategic plan is a very well thought out plan that has lots of other details that contribute to a greater outcome.
In September 2022, the district began work on a blueprint that defines our priorities and vision for the next 5 years. This year-long strategic planning process brought together all members of the community to work toward a common purpose, a series of deliverable goals and objectives to shape the future of the school district.
A strategic plan is focused on what the school needs to work on and how to strengthen the school district as a whole, encompassing it around its students and what their needs, the teachers and their needs, any faculty, staff, and what parents think is necessary for the school to flourish and provide the best education for its students. And everyone's needs are different. For instance, my needs aren't going to be the same as one of my classmates. And as a school district, you want to make sure you cover everyone's needs, you want to make sure everyone's comfortable, you want to make sure everyone's heard.
Our strategic plan has 5 goals with 4 objectives each. The plan reflects months of thoughtful and data-driven work by the Strategic Planning Council, made up of district staff and board members. We are extremely grateful to the more than 3,300 students, parents, staff, and community members who provided valuable input through surveys and in-person sessions. Our strategic plan goals are as follows. The first goal is to deepen the learning experiences of all students to prepare them for their future. Fostering inclusive and enriching learning experiences for all students is the very bread and butter of our mission. This goal focuses on what we teach and how we teach it in a way that nourishes the growth and development of every student. Goal number 2 promotes school culture, programs, and practices that prioritize wellness. A wellness-centered approach recognizes that the physical, emotional, and mental well-being of students is inseparable from their academic growth. Goal number 3, increase diversity, equity, and inclusivity across academic and extracurricular programs. This is not merely a matter of fairness, When we prioritize diversity, equity, and inclusivity, we prepare students to navigate a globalized world and to become compassionate, socially aware citizens. Goal number 4, strengthen the relationship between the schools, the district, and the community. A strong connection between the school district and the community creates a sense of shared responsibility for the success of our students, promoting a culture of support and engagement. Goal number 5 is to develop a comprehensive finance and facilities plan that will allow the district to achieve all other aspects of this strategic plan. This 5-year finance and facilities plan is an indispensable outline that will serve as the backbone of the district's long-term success and sustainability. Our finance and facilities plan incorporates many investments in our students, including a referendum to address full-day kindergarten, update our aging buildings, and align with 21st century teaching practices.
I think a strategic plan is a plan to work towards goals using new and innovative ideas.
Our strategic plan provides detailed, actionable items with clear direction on how to move the Westfield Public School District forward in meaningful ways over the next 5 years. So when you look at year 1, for example, you'll note that the district will conduct a comprehensive review of current curriculum and instructional practices, establish a district committee to review scheduling, conduct a school climate survey at all schools to better understand staff and student perceptions as they relate to wellness, identify areas for additional growth in diversity, equity, and inclusion within curriculum, school-wide programming, professional development, community engagement, and recruitment and retention of a diverse workforce. Create a comprehensive directory of our community partners, conduct a new demographic study to plan for a future referendum. Our strategic plan is not a static document. What we are able to accomplish in year 1 will have an impact on subsequent years. The plan is a dynamic and adaptable tool that will guide the district's journey toward its long-term goals. It will be regularly reviewed and updated to reflect changing circumstances and priorities and to ensure that it remains relevant and effective. As always, we will continue to be guided by the district's mission statement, which reads, "The Westfield Public School District, in partnership with families and the community, educates all students to reach their highest potential as productive, well-rounded, and engaged citizens who value individual differences and embrace diversity." In closing, our strategic plan opens the door to a world of opportunities for the school district and the entire community. The opportunities presented by this plan are not just aspirations, but achievable realities that will empower our students and staff to reach their full potential. Together, we embark on this journey of growth to ensure a tradition of educational excellence for generations to come.
Our families,
Our schools,
our community, nuestra visión, our vision.
our future.
Okay, that just concludes our strategic plan overview. I'd like to remind the public to refrain from calling out. It's disruptive and distracting to the business that we have on hand. You will have an opportunity to speak during public comment at 2 different portions. And at this point, I'd like to call Dr. Bolton up to discuss the annual statewide assessment performance report.
Good evening. Thank you to the Board of Education, Dr. Gonzalez, for allowing me to speak this evening about our, I skipped a bunch of slides. It's not going to go that fast. Okay, there we go. Thank you for allowing me to speak about our our district's performance on the annual statewide assessments. In August, you may remember, I presented on the NJGPA and our access scores. This evening, we'll be presenting on our NJSLA scores, and we'll also be talking a little bit about the DLM dynamic learning maps. I'm happy to have this evening with me our two fantastic K-12 supervisors, district supervisors in language arts, Ms. Elizabeth Riley, and our K-12 district supervisor, Ms. Elizabeth D'Alessandro. She's our math supervisor. We affectionately refer to them as the Lizzes. They love it. Mr. Tom Patterson was supposed to be here this evening as well to present on the science portion of the assessment. However, he is currently at the New Jersey Science Convention. So just to give some broad overview of the NJSLA assessment. The NJSLA assessment is an assessment that all students in our schools take from grades 3 to 9 in English language arts, mathematics, and science. Students take the NJSLA science in grades 5, 8, and 11. When the kids in grades 5, 8, and 11 learn that they're taking 2 more days of science testing, they cheer and cheer. They love it. And then we also have the dynamic learning maps, which I'll talk about a little bit. That's for our most significantly cognitively disabled students. So just an overview, a little bit of something that parents receive. In late September, all parents receive an individual student score report, these ISRs as they're known. They present a lot of information to parents. Just to kind of give you a quick broad overview. They present student performance levels. They present school-wide, statewide, and district-wide average scores. They also present a scale score that ranges from 650 to 850. And then they present their student score where it falls on that scale. The NJSLA is a criterion referenced assessment. It's assessing students' performance against the NJSLS student learning standards in that particular grade in those particular subjects. Student performance levels on the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment fall within any one of 5 levels, from not meeting grade level expectations all the way to meeting grade level expectations at level 4 and exceeding grade level expectations at level 5. We are obviously aiming for level 4s and levels 5s. What you'll see, and again, just so that everyone's aware, this is a broad overview presentation. It will be publicly available. This presentation will be publicly available on our district website for anyone who really wants to dive more deeply into the results of the state assessments. But again, to be respectful of everyone's time, we're going to give a broad overview of aggregate scores that you'll find on this slide, and then scores of subgroups, disaggregated scores. Very broad overview, and then we're going to spend some time really peeling back the layers and doing a deeper dive with our subject supervisors into the levels of analysis that they conducted into the scores. So what you'll see on this slide, Westfield scores are in blue for all grades. In English language arts, state scores are in black. On the right-hand side, you'll see total met or exceeded expectations, which is typical for Westfield. You're going to see that our average scores at each grade level are significantly higher than the state average. Westfield performs exceedingly well. Westfield students perform exceedingly well on these assessments in aggregate. When we dive into some subgroup scores, we'll see some areas for needed improvement. So just to break down some of the subgroups that we'll talk about, that'll be disaggregated. And this is the percentage of students who were assessed in grades 3 through 9. Economically disadvantaged represented 1.3% of the students. Students with disabilities, 20.5%, and English language learners, 4% or 0.4%. The asterisk next to economically disadvantaged, and what you'll see in some other subgroups, is that these students, we only report scores of groups of students who meet a certain threshold. So if the N of student scores is 10 or above, we'll report out on that subgroup. If it's below 10, then you won't see that score reported. White, 76% of students. Hispanic is 6.6%. Black or African American, 1.7%. Again, there'll be some subgroups that aren't reported, and Asian is 11%. So quickly, to go through some of the subgroup breakdowns, you'll see on this chart as you look through the presentation, these bar charts are showing the various performance levels. Level 1 is in lighter blue, level 2 is in orange, level 3 is in gray, level 4 in yellow, and level 5 in darker blue. So this is our Hispanic subgroup. This is ELA, our Asian subgroup. Now you'll see this is ELA 9. This is the only grade that had an N of 10 or higher. So this is the grade that we can report on in Black and African American. Our white subgroup. And these are all English language arts scores. When we look at these scores, we really do dive deeper into the scores. We look for patterns. We look for ways in which we can use these scores to tell us a story about individual students and groups of students. We don't just look at numbers on a PowerPoint presentation, but we really do dig into, are these scores representative of ways that we can enhance our curriculum or magnify some sort of instructional approach? Special education students in English language arts. So as I was saying, there are levels of analysis that our teams engage in when we do review these test scores. They're not something that's just handed out to teachers or administrators. Administrators work in teams to dive deeply into these scores. We work together in our PLCs, in our team meetings, in our faculty meetings and department meetings to really dive deeply, while also appreciating that these scores are one photo in an album of pictures for our students in the name of assessment. So this is an assessment that students take, and there are many assessments that students take, from curriculum-based assessments to diagnostic assessments to formative and summative assessments, and they all present us with a picture of who our students are and their overall body of experience in our schools. One of the pieces of evidence that we use that's provided to us through these scores is something called an evidence statement report. This provides us with this particular standards that are reported out on in a discipline. So we'll look at, in this report, you'll see that there's a series of standards listed. Westfield scores, or particular school scores, are represented in a green dot. The state average is represented in a blue square. And what we do is we look at each one of those standards, and then if we see that there's an area where there's further improvement needed, we'll dive more deeply into those standards. As we do a deeper dive and peel back the levels of analysis, then our supervisors will definitely, who are steering this process, get involved. And that's where they really do analyze all of the scores to find areas of strength, areas for further growth, and recommended areas of professional development. And this is where we build our professional development plans. We focus on areas of observation within observations of teachers to just overall enhance the student experience. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Liz Riley, who's going to report out on our English language arts scores at each level.
So before we start, I want to just say one thing. I'm the one that dives into the data. I'm the one that lives in it. I live in it all summer. I live in it as it comes through with Pearson. And one of the things that we have to start with is that our students are performing. They're showing us that things are on an upward trend, right? We're still working. We don't have data consistently due to the pandemic. So I think it's really, really important that if you go back and you look at, we're always above the state average. We're above our numbers from last year. And I think that's one of the things we have to start with. We have to say our teachers did a great job. Our students are doing a great job. I'm going to speak about a few things that last year I told you were areas for support, that this year were areas for strength. So all of that work that Dr. Bolton was talking about with regards to sitting with teachers, going through the data, seeing what there is, it's working. There was one school that we worked with, it was their SGO, their student growth objective, to work with text structures. You're going to see that third grade text structures are no longer an area for support. So it's really nice to see that work. Our elementary students performed well in all areas, like I said. We made double-digit gains in writing in some of our areas. So our writing as a whole increased in almost every single grade level, which was amazing to see. We see skills such as identification of text structures that were support last year are now areas of strength. And what they'll do is they'll continue to not just identify text structures, but explicit lessons will look to analyze those text structures. How are authors using them? Why are they using them? So you'll see that as I talk about intermediate again, there's a two parts: identification of certain key themes and main ideas, and then analyzing them. And that travels all the way through the grades. You'll hear that. So that's where we're doing really great work. We're able to identify text structures and learn them, but now we have to work a little bit more with analyzing them and what is an author's purpose before that. The other thing is the latest NJSLA exam that was given last spring included different texts than we've seen in the past. Poems, plays, that students had to finish the play. And it was Charlie Brown, which you have to believe some of them have no idea what it is. So teachers this year are intentionally, and I use that word because that is exactly what they're doing, incorporating those different texts into the curriculum. Poetry, short plays, just so that we're not just reading novels, we're not just reading short stories, we're incorporating those things. We've done a really good job of the multimedia component, but we're constantly striving to do a little bit better, or a lot better, really, let's be honest. All right, intermediate language arts. So I've stood up here before and I've said sixth grade tends to be a challenging year. But once again, we saw the percentage of students meeting or exceeding expectations rise, just like we did with elementary students. A highlight was all of their written expression and written knowledge at every single grade level improved. So once again, we're seeing that work. The recommendation, though, is still a writing recommendation. So even though we're doing great, we still are working towards analysis of multiple texts, the literary analysis of multiple texts. So those more complex components of the NJSLA, that's where we're putting our effort in. And one of the other pieces was that providing an analysis of a theme in 6th and 7th grade we see is an area for support, and in 8th grade it's an area of strength. So it's one of those continuously building standards that we see students are developing throughout the year, or the years. We're also now thrilled at the intermediate level that we have 2 full-time ELA interventionists. So when we talk about going through the data, those are also the people at the school-based level going through the data, and they're not going through the broad level data, they're going through the nitty-gritty, the writing components, the reading, informational, and literary, so that we can do everything we as a staff can do to identify the students that need either small group intervention services, or now we're so lucky because we can push into classes and provide that support in the gen ed classroom, which is just, it's been wonderful. So that we have for intermediate. And our high school students, our 9th grade students. So once again, we performed well. One of the areas, like I said, with the other areas is they can identify a main idea really well. They can look at a character concept and how the character develops over a text. But then when you ask, how does it apply to the plot? That's where one of our areas. So we're really diving deep into these standards, and that evidence statement that Dr. Bolton showed, that's where all of this comes from. Our English 1 curriculum allows students to do that, but we need to be explicit in our instruction as to what to look for and how to build that deeper understanding. And at the high school, we support them in multiple ways. We have our applications course, we have our English Resource Center. We've had over 100 appointments only so far in our English Resource Center, so students are using it. They can bring any English assignment, whether it be reading, writing based, they can make an appointment or they can drop in. So I have to say, I'm the language arts person. I'm not your math person, but I like the data. I like looking at it. It gives us some really, really good information to be able to go to teachers and not only say this is what you have to work on, but good job, right? Like my last department meeting started with good job. right? We did all of this really hard work. You're still working to have these students build their stamina and get used to, the joy of reading again, right? And everything like that. They're balancing technology and handwritten work and AI, let's be honest. So we're really doing great, great things, and I'm proud of the staff and I'm proud of the students. So thank you very much. Oh, would you like me to introduce Liz? Oh, no, you gotta go, sorry.
Thanks, Liz. So again, I think it's important that we are able to spend some time briefly going over the data, but then spend more time with the levels of analysis that the supervisors provide. So again, as with language arts, here's the table for aggregate scores for mathematics, grades 3 through 8. Just something to take notice that Liz D'Alessandro will explain in greater detail about 8th grade math and how it kind of separates students a bit. So you'll see a bit of a change in the score report for 8th grade math. But again, our students in math continue to perform extremely well, not only against like districts, but against the state average. Here's our reports, here's our scores for Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry. Again, when you really look over at that total met or exceeded expectations column on the far right, you see how much significantly better we're doing than the state average. And again, subgroup scores, this is where we really do dive deeper into and really do analyze who are these students, where are they, what other subgroups do they represent, because there are students that are in that represent multiple subgroups. So they're represented multiple times on these charts. So this is where we look at what are we doing within our DEI initiative to provide some level of connection and belonging and making sure these students feel comfortable at school, making sure that we're teaching in a manner that makes them feel a sense of belonging to their classroom. Also, when we look at some of these subgroup scores, here's our Asian subgroup performance and our white subgroup performance and special education performance. These are students with disabilities. When we look at these subgroups, when I look at these subgroup charts, I see our MTSS initiative. I see the tiers of, when I look at the top, I see tier 1, which are classroom responsive, intentional teaching strategies. And then as I move further down, I see tier 2 interventions where we're increasing the level of intensity, increasing the level of support through interventionists. And then as we move further down, we see rising intensity, rising support through individualized support. So again, that's a strategic planning goal, and it's in response to some of the things that we're seeing within our subgroups. Economically disadvantaged for math, and again, two grade levels reporting, and just for everyone's understanding, the N in each of these subgroups is very small, reportable but still very small. And I'm going to turn it over to Liz D'Alessandro now, who will dive a little bit deeper into the levels of analysis for our math assessments.
Good evening. I could probably say everything that Liz just said to you, just ditto it and apply it to math, but I'll try to give you a little bit more of a math spin to it. We follow the same protocol of finding the strengths, areas for support, and ways to kind of support the students through the process. So in grades 3 through 5, the assessment results indicated strengths with whole number computation and using 4 operations to solve multi-step number stories. But the shining light at the elementary level was in all 3 grades we found notable improvement in the areas of students' ability to explain and justify their reasoning. And last year, that was an area of concern for us, so we made huge improvements. In fact, in one of the grades, there was a 21% increase in their modeling capabilities. So what we put into effect last year with a lot more of being able to provide students with collaborative experience of problem solving is paying off. And that is a plan that I'll talk to you about a little bit further along. Numbers stories involving fractions and mixed numbers. Those of you that experience fractions at a young age, I'm sure you all might have had that moment where fractions didn't quite make sense. We still need some work there. It's just not one of our strengths, but we're going to keep pushing on it. So while we had all the improvements in the reasoning and modeling, we're going to continue to provide those opportunities like I had mentioned, but we also have the support of our K-12 math program follows through with that problem solving. So they will continue to have it. So even if this is a fifth grader last year and is now a sixth grader, they're going to be experiencing those same opportunities at the middle school level, no matter which middle school they are at. We also have a textbook series that allows for spiral review, embedded practice, opportunities for students to share their strategies and to critique others so that they learn to hear other people's experiences through the mathematics. And we also have opportunities for differentiation, not only for remediation, but also for enrichment. In addition, at the elementary level, we have the Achieve program that we work with the teachers on how to provide that one-on-one support that students might need during their process, and also try to promote them out of the program when they have reached their potential. At the intermediate level, there we go. This slide pertains only to the students that took the grade 6, grade 7, and grade 8 math assessments. And I say that because there are students at our intermediate schools that are taking high school level mathematics courses. So the 7th grade is the first time that students have leveled math courses, and that affects which tests that they take based on the state standards. So 43% of last year's 8th graders took the Math 8 test, whereas the remaining 57% of our students either took the Algebra 1 or the Geometry test, which is why their scores are a little bit different when you get to that 8th grade test. In addition, 97% of last year's 7th graders took the Math 7 test, even though we have 2 different math courses at the 7th grade level. They are still all qualified for Math 7. It's only students that might be taking Algebra 1 at the middle school that are taking a different test, and that's what represents 3% of our population. So the results from those 3 assessments indicated strengths in the areas of rational number operations and proportional reasoning with linear models. But we do need to focus more on recognizing equivalence in different equation representations as well as scientific notation. The challenging part with scientific notation is we spend so much time on those other big things that scientific notation tends to be right around the time of the test. So we're working on the scheduling to see if we can find a way to make that happen. So to support students in the 6 through 8 levels, we've added math interventionists at each of the intermediate schools thanks to the public support of last year's budget. And the intervention program will work to support students during class discussions through a push-in model as well as in small group pull-out sessions. The intermediate textbook, like I had mentioned, builds off of our elementary program where it continues to build that collaboration. It has the spiral review, the embedded practice, lots of differentiation opportunities. And in addition, the intermediate math teachers and I spent a lot of time earlier this year to focus on Tier 1 instructional techniques to build up their capacity for the MTSS framework as part of our strategic goals. So some of those include differentiation, collaboration, vocabulary support, and small group instructional techniques. Moving on to the high school, this is where we've got a smorgasbord, shall we say, of different testing. So while we're looking at it from the high school lens, you have students sitting in grades 7, 8, and 9 actually taking these assessments. So for the Algebra 1 assessment, 43% of the students tested were 9th graders, but 57% of them were 7th or 8th graders taking the test. For the Geometry assessment, 90% of the students taking the test were 9th graders, but 10% were 8th graders. Of the 9th graders who took these math assessments, 47% took Algebra 1, 50% took Geometry, and 3% took Algebra 2. So in the Algebra 1 assessment, the results indicated a strength in the areas of reasoning with linear, exponential, and quadratic functions. However, solving quadratic functions using the specific method of completing the squares was a challenging part. So we're going to have to work on that. Geometry assessment indicated strengths with applying geometric reasoning within the coordinate setting, as well as calculating arc length, sectors, and volumes. But when they needed to apply similarity concepts with transformations, that needed a little bit more support. So we've brought that to the attention of the teachers, and they're working to find out ways on how they can kind of enforce that throughout their lessons. Once again, the strength with the high school math program is a focus on the collaboration. So working together on practice examples using reasoning and modeling to solve math and real-world problems is always part of our classroom experience. They also have frequent opportunities to refine, justify, and communicate their thinking. So we will be using the release test items as ways to kind of bring the students up to speed on how to interpret the questions. We always pull from those as like support techniques. The outside of the classroom instructional supports that are available at the high school, we have a workshop class in Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. So that's a class that students can take to supplement what they're learning in their mainstream math classes. We also have the Math Resource Center, which is currently available through all lunch periods. It's a very popular place during the day, as I'm sure some of you have heard with your own children. So like I had mentioned, the reasoning and modeling was a big takeaway all through the grades. We have huge improvements in some grades and smaller improvements, but the message is still the same as what Liz was mentioning earlier. We are consistently making strides in the right direction. In fact, when you look at the full report that Dr. Bolton had shared, all but one grade in mathematics is 30% points higher than the state average or more. The other thing is that grades 3 and 4, we are now achieving scores that are pre-pandemic success levels. We are at that goal with 3 and 4. Grades 5 through 8 are making the consistent and moderate gains. 6 through 8 were where we saw our biggest deficiencies during the pandemic, so we're gradually working our way back. We have approximately 3 to 10% improvement in each of those grades, depending on which grade it is. So it's all positive news.
Thanks, Liz. And just to quickly go through science, because Mr. Patterson's not with us this evening, science is a completely different animal. It's not on a 5-point scale. It is on a 4-point scale: proficient, near proficient. Below proficient, near proficient, proficient, and advanced proficient. The standards for science are incredibly challenging and complex. The assessment itself is incredibly challenging and complex, as you can see from both our district averages of meeting and exceeding proficiency and the state averages. So if you'd like to, I would offer that you go on the NJDOE website. They have sample test items for NJSLA science, and I've taken some of them just within this past week, and I can tell you that I absolutely need to brush up on 5th grade science. It's a really hard assessment, and it's multiple. So again, some of our subgroup scores. It's the issue with the science assessment is that it is there's multiple answers within one question, and students can often lose all credit for one mistake on a multiple answer problem. So that is obviously proven to be a challenge. The other challenge with the science assessment is that it's treated differently. There's a 4-point scale instead of a 5-point scale. The scale is different, and we don't get the level of reporting from the state. Like those evidence statements that everybody's reported out as so valuable, we don't receive those from the state for the science assessment. So we really do go back to our curriculum-based assessments, our diagnostic assessments that we're using within our science program, observations of students and observations of teachers to really gauge where we need to enhance our curriculum, where we need to change our sequencing. So, again, science at the elementary, intermediate, and high school, we continue to show strength in recognizing patterns and relationships. Students definitely need to continue to focus on questioning, argumentation skills, and the claim evidence reasoning process structure. That's something that if you ask one of your children about CER, they'll groan and say they hear it all day long, claim evidence and reasoning, because they do. Intermediate student modeling development remains a strong area. That's a foundational element of our science curriculum, and students do need to continue to work on data interpretation and graphing. High school, strengths are in data interpretation and communicating information, and students continue to work on questioning and modeling skills. So really quickly, the DLM, we only had as a district 5 students assessed through the DLM. The DLM stands for Dynamic Learning Maps. It is an assessment very similar to the NJSLA, but designed to accommodate our most significantly disabled students. It's an assessment that has truly built-in modifications and accommodations, so student accessibility in this exam is completely different and individualized. Again, we don't report out on scores for a number under 10. So there's really no report to share. So in summary, our next steps are, as I stated, for our teams to meet, for our administrators to continue to meet with teachers to analyze and process these scores and really do a deep dive into individual students and patterns that are emerging from the data as our supervisors just presented. Also, I think it's important to note that through the public support that we received through last year's budget and through this is a reality. The reality is that what we budget for and what we place in our strategic goal is a statement of our priorities, right? And our priorities are addressing the needs that are presented in this report. So when we add interventionists at the intermediate school level, when we add counselors at the elementary school levels, when we're adding ESL teachers across the district, those are all in pursuit of enhancing not only the overall student experience and how connected they feel to our schools, but also their academic performance and the ways in which we can respond to the things that we see. So as our supervisors are impressed and happy to see the progress that we're making, I'm thrilled to stand here this year because of the public support for a budget and say, we're developing the resources to respond to the needs. Rather than just say teachers are going to have to work harder and longer, we can say we have resources that we need to respond to the things that we're seeing in the data. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bolton and the Liz's. If any board members have any questions, if you could raise your hand so I can take note and wait to be called on. Okay, go ahead, Mary.
Thanks. Hi. This could be for any of you guys, but just so the community is aware, for a student to be identified to need Achieve or an interventionist, what kind of data do you use? I mean, it's not just the testing.
Yes,
obviously.
so that's a really great question, and that comes back to this is one picture in a photo album, right? So there is never going to be a time where a student is identified solely through the use of NJSLA data. It's a one piece of data that we need to triangulate against the student's lived experience, and that's what I would say to any of the parents who are here or to you. If you receive an individual student, your student's individual score report, and you say, this doesn't look like my student's typical performance, this is aberrant, I would pick up the phone and I would call the students, I would call the principal, I would call the counselor and kind of dive a little bit deeper. Because again, these scores represent 3 to 4 days in the lived experience of a student, and lots of things can interfere with that.
Thank you. Sahar?
So first, I want to thank you all for that excellent presentation. I know, and thank the staff. I know that all of this is a result of a lot of work. So I have a few just overarching questions, and I understand if you can't answer them tonight, but I just wanted to put them out there. So the first is, how do these numbers compare to our peer districts? I understand that we're comparing ourselves to the state, but as we know, New Jersey's got 550 plus towns and school districts, and it's very diverse along various demographic lines. So I'm curious just to know, how are we at the same level of, and I'll just throw out cities, they don't necessarily have to be peer institutions, but, or excuse me, peer cities, but Millburn, Summit, Livingston, Scotch Plains, the towns that people think about when they're trying to decide where to live based on school quality, which is usually why people move to places like Westfield. So that's the first. The second is comparing to the pre-COVID years, and one of you mentioned this, which I thought was a really important point, because I suspect every school district across the country dipped in its performance measures because of all the challenges that came with COVID. And I'm thrilled to see that we've gone up, so that's wonderful news. But I think it would be helpful to know, have we gone up based on pre-COVID, or is this really just catching up, right? Which is a little bit of a different type of progress. And then The other issue is, every year when we get this excellent presentation, it's quite noticeable that our minority students, particularly Hispanic, and we don't have a lot of numbers on African American because the numbers are just so low, but that they're performing less than their white or Asian counterparts, particularly in terms of less than 4, right? 4 is proficient, but below that, presumably, it sounds like that's below grade level, which is important, problematic. So I'm just curious to know what strategies are in place to make sure that there aren't those group-based racial disparities for that 7% of our population. Thank you.
Yes, so your first statement about like school districts, those are reports, and unfortunately, the reports from the state are not coincided with the reports that we give publicly. So the state does release and it's available on their website. They list the scores of every single school district and broken down by subgroup. And those are things when they're released, we're absolutely going to dive into them and draw some level comparisons just to see, again, for internal measures to see how we're compared. And again, that helps us as a school district to talk to some of these people that we are colleagues with in other districts to see, is it a programming thing? Is it a time structure thing? Some areas that you probably noticed that are identified in our strategic plan. That those are areas within our school structures that might be different in other schools, and they could have an impact. So that absolutely happens, and it will continue to happen. Pre-COVID levels, I would say yes, there was a massive dip during COVID in our school performance, and there was also years of no testing as well. So, and I know the kids were really upset with no testing. So we're happy to have it back, but we are getting right to pre-COVID levels.
So one of the difficult things when we're looking at trends across state testing is that 2018, 2019 was the first year that the state administered the NJSLA when they moved from PARC. So we had a new test that year. So that was 2018, 2019. Well, 2019, 2020, we know what happened then. And then 2020, 2021, we had no testing. So while we can compare and look at pre-pandemic, it's still really hard to do so. And right when we're about to have a good chunk of data now, we just adopted new standards at the state level. That was just done last week. So who knows what that will do for state testing moving forward. So right when we have enough data to really look at, we're going to have a new test. So I think that's just an important part to note, that the test format has changed. So while we have all of that and we do look at that, it's just not as reliable as we would hope it would be. So, yeah.
So those are tough answers to question, not simply from a looking at the numbers, but also from a design standpoint, how the tests change over the years. And then with regard to subgroup performance, that's absolutely something that we look at and plan for. And even to again, it's a priority of ours as a district, and that's why it's reflected in our strategic plan. To the extent that it's even informing our professional development, I can tell you on last Monday, every elementary school and intermediate school teacher took part in professional development that was specifically focused on subgroup performance and building culturally competent teaching strategies to ensure that student subgroup performance is not only just the performance of these students, but also their overall experiences being impacted.
Thank you. Sorry, just one quick follow-up is, I can't help but note what you highlighted, which is our science numbers are really, really low. And I realize the state is also really, really low, but again, I personally don't care about what the state does. It's more about
Sure.
what our students do, and a significant, it seems like most of them are less than 50%. And so I just raise that to say, I hope that the staff will let the board know and the superintendent know, and I'm sure you are, about the resources that you need in order to help that program, because change requires resources, it requires investment. And so I know you all are doing everything you can, but those numbers are a little bit worrisome.
So again, I think it's looking at the context of numbers in context of the standards, and like you brought up before, like school districts. So when we look at, like, is there a programming issue? Is there a curricular issue? We look at all of those factors and not just these scores, because, like I reported out, the scores are low, not just in this district, not just the state. They're challenging standards. And again, the nature of the assessment is also challenging.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we continue on, some board members had questions about the strategic plan. So if anybody has a question from the board about the strategic plan, please raise your hand and wait to be called on. Okay, go ahead, Rob.
Sure. Question and just sort of some additional edification for the public. So the strategic planning process has gone essentially like a funnel. We started from some very general goals, and this iteration, what's going to be on the agenda for our approval tonight, is taking the objectives and moving them down to things that are more concrete. The question then becomes, when do we start getting the specific projects and deadlines and timelines and budgets that go along with all of that? I know in our committees, we're talking about, we're sort of taking the next steps ahead on this process already, as far as what can we do and how can we start planning ahead for budgeting and making sure that whatever we're going to talk about and say we can accomplish because we've got the money, the space, and the data to do it. I know some of us have also been joining the architectural firm that the board hired to walk through buildings and see firsthand. I mean, literally, they're going roof to boiler room into every classroom and determining where there are needs. Everything from we got a structural problem to the furniture's mismatched. And all of those things are important data gathering, because without those, we can have all the plans we want, but we don't know where the next steps are. So I want to make sure the public knows we're doing that work, even while we're presenting this next phase of the goals. But I think it would be helpful just for the board and the public to know what the next steps are for us, how we're going to take this latest iteration of what we're doing into those actual, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to fund it, and this is when we hope to accomplish it by, and why we're staging it year one, and then how year two and subsequent rests on what we're doing in year one.
So your question actually answered a lot of I was going to respond, so thanks for that. But it really does, I think, speak to the collaborative nature of this process from the start through the implementation. And as mentioned, during the summer, the administration took the first stab at developing action plans that attempted to take the goals and objectives and turn them into reasonable and achievable outcomes that we believe would serve the district moving forward. However, recognizing that there's a lot of detail that we still don't know the answers to. And that's because of the nature of the work that is involved includes, as you had mentioned, a lot of data gathering, whether it be through the facilities tours, whether it be through the audits of our curriculum, whether it be through the investigation into various scheduling structures that are conducive to the work that we're attempting to engage in. A lot of that work and a lot of that decision-making will help inform the next steps. So over the course of this year and over the course of future years, that work will take part and take place in our committees through the Board of Education, working with the administration in order to see, as had been mentioned, what do we need in order to move the district forward? How are we gathering this information? What are we gathering from this information that helps to inform the next steps? And at that point, and only at that point, then could we start to assign and ascribe resources, whether it be time, whether it be staff, whether it be budgets. And based upon all of that, we will be able to then identify specific deliverables and timelines. So let's take, just as an example, a referendum, a future referendum. Well, a future referendum, whether it be for full-day kindergarten and or the expansion or enhancements of our facilities, is all dependent on the work that's taking place over the course of this year. So as that work is taking place and unfolding, it's revealing those priority needs at an immediate emergency basis, a long or midterm basis, and things that would require voter approval on a much grander scale. So for us to be too specific in our timelines or too specific in our deliverables really would just set us up potentially to either over-promise and under-deliver, or quite honestly, short-change what we're able to do. So the work that you witnessed today and that is available in the public-facing document really highlights the major outcomes and deliverables that we anticipate in each of the 5 goals areas and the subsequent objectives, with a focus on what we plan on doing this year. That work this year will then certainly inform future years, but over the course of this year, I anticipate through our committee reports, I anticipate through our administrative reports, through our newsletters, we're going to be able to provide that level of detail as you described, moving from the larger opening of that funnel down to the more granular level. But I think it's important to note that we are deliberative in our approach. We are not trying to move too far ahead, because the last thing I want to do is start to design a facility that is incapable of supporting the programmatic needs. We need to be driven by our bread and butter, which is our curriculum and instruction programs. We need to identify what we need educationally, and then from there use that as the basis for making decisions around staffing, around facilities, and ultimately around resources and fiscal requirements. So I would say it's an evolving experience, but it's an evolving experience that will continue to be part of the work that guides the administration and the board, and quite honestly, the public, in that synergistic experience to move the district forward.
Yeah, go ahead, Sahar.
Thank you. I just wanted to congratulate and thank all the staff that have put an enormous amount of work under the leadership of our senior administrators. And this is my 3rd year on the board, and I've noticed a significant improvement in communication to the community, and so I definitely want to thank our communications department in showing that there's more transparency and there's more opportunity for engagement, the weekly newsletters from the principals, the weekly newsletters from the superintendent. So I think this strategic plan is part of that broader trend, and I hope that the community continues to stay engaged. So thank you very much, Dr. Gonzalez.
Okay, I'd like to turn it over to Casey for the student representative report.
The past few weeks have been very eventful at Westfield High School. Since the last board meeting, WHS held successful back-to-school night, over 65 clubs participated in Club Day, and the cast and crew of the fall play Antigone have been hard at work rehearsing before their opening night in November. This month is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and our school has several events planned to raise awareness and fundraise for this cause. Last week, the high school volleyball program held their annual Pink Out fundraiser and game. Student government is currently planning the student versus staff volleyball game taking place this Friday to raise money to fight breast cancer through the organization Pathways. SGA will be selling bracelets and homerooms. The homerooms that raise the most money will get to watch the game live from the gymnasium. In addition, we will be holding a Pink Out door decorating contest. Pink ribbon will be provided by SGA, but remember to send in your student with additional supplies. The winning homeroom will receive a bagel breakfast. The next big event coming up is Spirit Week in November, including the upperclassmen homecoming dance and pep rally. These events are ones that students really look forward to. Now for the more difficult part. I feel I cannot fulfill my role as student representative to the Board of Education if I do not address the way the situation in the Middle East has impacted our WHS community. Last week, the world witnessed a horrific terrorist attack by Hamas. There is a significant...
Can we please let him finish?
Are you allowed to take public video and demand these up front? Yeah, you've been doing it the whole time.
Are you a parent? I want to know who you are.
Are you allowed
I make a motion for 10-minute recess. Can I have a second? All in favor?
Excuse me. Excuse me. Oh, I thought you wanted the police officer.
Please note that as we're trying to conduct business, we cannot conduct business with the disorderly conduct of the public. So I'd ask that the board ask members of the public be courteous and mindful of the rights of us up here speaking. And at this current moment, I'd like to turn it back over to Casey to finish his high school student representative report.
There is a significant Jewish population within WHS, and especially after the issues with swastikas in our school's bathrooms 2 years ago, they are scared right now, and a showing of support from the school itself would go a long way. Student groups have taken the lead and have mobilized to provide support for the student body. No Place for Hate and the Jewish Culture and Development Club teamed up to host an after-school reflection yesterday. This event was open to the entire student body as well as faculty. The meeting was used as an opportunity for people to get their feelings out in a safe space and to provide support for all people affected by this war going forward. Westfield High School has always done a good job of graduating well-informed, empathetic citizens. In these difficult times, let us continue to live up to this goal. Thank you.
Okay, we'll continue on with our board committee reports. Next up is the report by Curriculum Instruction and Assessment Committee Chairperson, I believe, Kristen.
So I noticed today that our name has officially changed. We are now the CIA Committee, which is Curriculum Instruction and Assessment. So I thought that was pretty exciting. CIA met on October 2nd. We discussed the K through 12 science curriculum, reviewed the NJSLA assessment results from Dr. Bolton, which Dr. Bolton and his team presented this evening, and received a report outlining the WHS student participation and performance on AP exams. The main highlight of our meeting was the presentation from Tom Patterson, the district's K through 12 science supervisor. He reviewed the department's philosophy, course sequence, course competencies, the resources used at each level, and how the department plans to grow in coordination with the district's strategic plan. One of the areas that Mr. Patterson was most excited about was the level of consistency that the science department has been able to achieve at each level over the past several years. All of our preschool teachers use Mystery Doug as their foundational resource, aka Mystery Doug. At the elementary level, the teachers use FOSS, which is Full Option Science System from the University of Berkeley, as their guiding resource. Roosevelt and Edison use Open Science Ed curriculum, which is an NGSS-aligned phenomenon-based curriculum, where students are presented a question at the beginning of each unit, and by researching and working through the overarching question, they learn the intricacies of each science topic at hand. At the high school level, the teachers have created PLCs, which stands for Personal Learning Communities, for each discipline to share lesson and assessment planning in an effort to allow for consistency across each section. Now that each level has found supportive resources to ensure consistent and thorough lesson and unit planning across the district, the next step is to look at how each level can continue to expand and grow the students' learning opportunities. They are incorporating the new MTSS approach at all levels, using data to identify subgroups in need and to develop effective instructional strategies and interventions in an effort to support each student. Mr. Patterson also expressed excitement about the potential to add more course offerings and schedule flexibility at the high school level as the district re-examines the structure of the school day as part of the strategic plan. Along those lines, he was happy to report that we have expanded our AP course offerings in science over the last 4 years. Our physics honors expanded the curriculum in order to offer it as AP Physics 1 starting in the year of 2019 to 2020, and AP Environmental was first offered in the year of 2020 to 2021. Environmental has quickly become one of the most popular AP science courses at WHS. Our next CIA meeting is scheduled for November 6th. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Go ahead, Sahar.
Thank you, Kristen and Rob. I also wanted to just mention something that I've mentioned multiple times, just because we have many parents here, is the request by a number of parents that I heard over the years for AP Mandarin. And so hopefully as we expand our AP offerings, that I know that Mandarin is one that's been at least communicated to me, and I think we can all agree that the future is likely going to demand those language skills by our students once they become leaders due to just global changes. Thank you.
So that actually is on our list of questions for Enrique. He's the director of our languages department, and he's going to be visiting with us on December 8th, and I have it actually down here as one of our questions.
Okay, thank you. Next up is report by Finance and Facilities.
Yep.
Brendan or Ken? Okay.
Yep. The Finance Committee met on Friday morning. It was about an hour and a half long meeting. We discussed no fewer than 15 topics. We were very efficient, and we all actually noted that throughout the day. Starting off, we had Mike Beery, our new district architect, with us. He, along with Dr. Gonzalez, Ms. Ramos, myself, Sean MacArthur, our buildings and grounds supervisor, Frank Padovano, our security director, and building principals, along with a couple board members. Sonal joined us for one. CJ and Rob have joined me. Kristen and Mary may or may not be joining me tomorrow at McKinley. We've toured every... Okay, I'll see you in November. We've toured every building except for McKinley, which we'll do tomorrow, and we have not finished the high school yet. Doing a thorough, literally room by room, wall by wall, closet by closet inspection of all of our facilities. Each elementary school has taken us about 3 hours. Roosevelt took 6. The high school's taking 3 days. They are incredibly thorough, noting everything that our staff and students look by every day as just sort of normal. They're writing it down. This is all part of our comprehensive plan to ultimately improve our space, optimize our space, and increase space as needed. The report for that should be available sometime maybe around the end of the calendar year, hopefully. If not, it'll be early 2024. We have contracted with Advocate, it's a third-party provider, to analyze our food service offerings in the past, and we are expanding our cooperation with them to analyze our custodial staff and equipment, mostly equipment, to find out if we're all doing the same things in every building, if we have the right size staff and the right allocation of staff to best optimize what we're doing in those departments. Particularly looking at what we're doing with our fields and grounds. It's an area where we tend to just overlook, as anybody who's seen our fields can attest. The work at the Roosevelt facade is ongoing. Phase 1 should be done in November. Weather permitting, it'll be done before Thanksgiving. We have two policies we've added to tonight's agenda. Both are due to changes in state law and don't really impact our operations at all. One has to do with the ability for only certificated staff to enroll their students in district. That's already settled by contract for us. And policy 8500 has to do with food services, and it's an updated mandatory change, but none of it applies to us because we don't have a poverty level that exceeds 5%. So there's a lot of changes that do not and probably will never apply to Westfield. We discussed the YMCA aftercare situation. There's a substantial wait list at some schools and wait list at all schools, to be honest. Part of that has to do with staffing on the Y's part. They are increasing their staffing as quickly as the staff can pass the background checks. The other part of the equation is that even though we are a licensed school with the state and the Y is a licensed childcare provider, when they use our space, they have to get permission from the state to use each classroom, and that has not been updated to account for the current need. So we've approved the Y to increase their license with the state, and hopefully as they hire staff, all of those backlogs will go away. And lastly, we are looking at the 24-25 budget. Transportation and special ed are always increasing, as is healthcare, but healthcare is increasing at a slower rate than we've seen in the past, although prescriptions are still something we're watching. We are not expecting a waiver from the state this year for health insurance increases. In the past, we've been able to we were given a buffer from the state beyond the 2% due to increases in healthcare, and with the state, but that's always pegged to the state's plan renewal rate, and we are there locked in at just under 7%, and that means we will not be getting a waiver from the state. By December, we'll have a much better idea where the budget for next year will lie, and at this point, schools are building their sort of wish list that will get refined down. Obviously, everybody has more programs they want to run. Space and finances will always be the limiting factor. And then we're meeting November 17th. Any questions? Yes, Sahar?
Go ahead, Sahar.
Thank you, Brendan. As we've discussed multiple times, and as you just mentioned, we have severe space shortages, some more severe than others, depending on the school. Do we have a sense of whether that's affected the class size of our, whether it's and maybe this might be better for Dr. Gonzalez, and again, you may not need to answer it today, but when you have space shortages, there are many adverse impacts, and one of which is the possibility that your class size increases in particular grades or particular schools. And so is that something that we're seeing? And the second question is there any way for us to expand space without a referendum?
So the second one is easy. It's no. We just don't have the 8 figures sitting in the bank that would be needed to add on the space that we need. That's a very simple question. It's an unfortunate question. I mean, it's an unfortunate answer, but obligating the taxpayers to 30 years of payments should require voter approval. Your first question with class size, there are always bubbles, but parity across district for grade levels is equal, plus or minus 1 child per school, per class. It's not like we have 15 kids at Wilson and 30 kids in a class at McKinley. District-wide parity is equal on grade level. Where we do see issues with space is things like art rooms and music rooms. Not every school has them because they don't have space. And then supplemental programs, speech therapy, interventionists. Those are sometimes doubled up, which has to do with something on the agenda tonight regarding dual-use spaces. We have to get county approval for that. Or things being put in closets instead of classrooms, or in the hallway in some very, very limited circumstances. But the core classroom instruction is on par or equitable district-wide. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm, is that accurate, Dr. Gonzalez, with the class sizes?
It's accurate, and it's also part of the demographic study that we're going to be conducting. I know the Finance and Facilities Committee had spoken about the different options, but included in the options will also be a functional capacity study as well.
And one last thing that I forgot to mention. Once again, we went out to bid for busing, and we had to reject those bids because they were too high. State law is very clear about the lowest qualified bidder. We have to award the contract, but if it's beyond our budget, we can reject those bids. And now, quoting from the law, a contract may be negotiated and awarded without public advertising if bids have been advertised on 2 occasions and no bids have been received, or we've rejected both bids. So now Patty has the opportunity to negotiate with mostly Durham to...
No, that's just coach busing.
Oh, just coach busing.
That's just the coach busing bid.
Yep. We've had nothing but problems with bidding buses, so... but now we get to negotiate instead of relying on voluntary bids.
Thank you, Brendan. Policies, Personnel, and Governance Committee, Mary?
Thank you. The Policy, Personnel, and Governance Committee met on October 5th. For policies, we have been slowly but surely reviewing the district bylaws and policies and checking to see how they compare to Strauss-Esme bylaws, and also what we have come up with for the strategic plan and the board handbook. So in our agenda tonight for first reading, a couple of the policies that we revised based on Strauss-Esme is our mission statement. Well, our mission statement is being aligned with what came out of our strategic planning. Policy 0155 on board committees, we recommend to adopt the Strauss-Esme version and update the handbook to include section on board liaisons. Policy 0164, conduct of board meeting. There were additional sections added to the Strauss-Esme policy, including addenda, board member submissions, and board member responsibility. And we are recommending to adopt that version and include that description of board member responsibilities and new business in the handbook. And lastly, we went over, for review tonight, policy 9120, which is public relations program. Ours was different from the Strauss-Esme, and we recommend adopting that. So Strauss-Esme, if the public doesn't know, it's allows us to condense our policies into more easily accessible terms for everyone instead of a lot of wording. So it's very concise, and it helps us proceed more accurately. In the personnel section, we heard from Dr. Gonzalez and his proposal to create a dedicated part-time position to focus on a coordinator for the district's DEI initiative. We listened to his job description. We were able to review it. The DEI initiative across the part-time position will look over all departments and provide technical assistance and supports to staff. So the job description is up for voting tonight. In governments, we discussed the motion that was tabled during the September 19th meeting in regards to board training. And in response to that, during PBJ, Dr. Gonzalez had provided us with a Google Doc, which he will be sending out for survey topics of trainings that we can all choose from as a board and what our top 5 trainings will be. He was also able to provide us in his superintendent check-in with some dates that our representative will be able to come and give these trainings to us. So if you look on the last superintendent check-in, those are dates on there that we can use for those trainings. Lastly, in regards to HIB, I know Dr. Gonzalez had informed us of the 2022-2023 self-assessment. And also on the agenda tonight is an updated list of anti-bullying specialists who will be used to conduct HIB investigations under the law. And that is it. Our next meeting is November 2nd. Yes.
Thank you, Mary. Brendan?
Yeah. Just one question. With regard to the DEI coordinator,
yes.
Are we envisioning that being a stipended position for existing staff or an addition of staff?
I'll let Dr. Gonzalez.
It would be a part-time position, so it would be a salaried position based upon a 1/5 of a full-time equivalent. It would not be added as a stipend.
Okay.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to recognize the public on agenda action items only. During this portion of the meeting, district residents and staff are invited to address the Board of Education on agenda's action items only. The board requests that individuals state their name and address for the record, the specific action items they are commenting on, and asks that all remarks be directed to the board president, not to individual members or staff. The board asks that members of the public be courteous and mindful of the rights of other individuals when speaking. Specifically, comments regarding personnel matters are discouraged and cannot be responded to by the board. Students and employees have specific legal rights afforded by the laws of New Jersey. The board bears no responsibility, nor will it be liable for any comments made by members of the public. If a matter concerning a district staff member is of interest or concern to a resident, the matter should be referred to the responsible building principal, superintendent of schools, or the Board of Education, either by telephone, letter, or email. Although the board may not respond to items raised during the public forum, all public comments will be considered. Please note that if any member of the public becomes disruptive during the meeting, the board president may terminate the participant's statement. Continued disruptions may result in removal from the meeting or adjournment of the meeting.
Sonal, apologies. Should I give my report on the UCSBA?
That's at the end of the
Okay, fine.
liaison. Yes, thanks, CJ. Each speaker's statement will be limited to 3 minutes in duration.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, members of the board, my name is Ken Rotter. I live at 649 Westfield Avenue in Westfield. I rise to speak today on Agenda Item 9C, the strategic plan, and I urge you to vote no on that strategic plan. And I urge you to vote no because it doesn't address sufficiently anti-Semitism in the school district. And if it does, the actions being taken by this board and under the direction of this board are insufficient to address it. I follow on the good words of Casey Iser, who reminds us what happened several years ago here in Westfield. I was reading a report about that today, the New Jersey Education Report, March 29, 2022. In December, police and school district officials found themselves investigating both a racial slur carved in a girl's bathroom stall at Westfield High School and a swastika in another. A few days later, they found 2 more swastikas. Principal Mary Esfendis confirmed there is a, quote, pervasive problem of anti-Semitism and intolerance at our high school. So where I grew up, I was the only Jew in my school district. So when folks threw pennies at me and people looked for horns on my head, I had to grin and bear it. But when my wife and I decided to raise our family here in Westfield, we thought we would find better. It hasn't been better. It continues not to be better. And when this board doesn't provide sufficient guidance to its staff members to be able to call out the anti-Semitism in a way that makes Jewish parents and their children feel like they're safe, feel like they are not the subjects of anti-Semitism in this district. When Hamas calls for a day of jihad in America and across the world, and our children are sent off to school, and there's not a word about it. That's a problem. So, as school board members, all of you have your own feelings about what's going on in Israel and Gaza. But you're not here to protect the children and the parents of Israel. And you're not here to protect the children, you're sure not here to protect the children and the parents of Gaza. You're here to protect the children and the parents of Westfield. And on that front, we cannot equivocate, and we need to do better. Thank you.
Emily Barker, 434 Longfellow. I would like to speak on personnel item P. I'd like to address the district's decision to hire a coordinator of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Given the fact that Westfield laid off beloved, effective teachers from the arts department last year, and for the last 2 years, we parents have been told that the district is in need of money in order to service our students' academic needs, I'm very curious as to what the reasoning is for this new hire. I'm in the recruiting profession, and I could tell you that following the Supreme Court decision, there's been a massive pushback in DEI hires in the corporate world. A large reason for this reality is that positions are rarely, if at all, attached to measurable KPIs. I've read the job description provided by the district, and there are no concrete KPIs for the success of this new hire. Since it is not in the job description, how is the district planning on measuring success? Why does the district feel that this position is a priority versus spending this money on boosting academics? In addition, from my professional experience, DEI practices focus on African American, Latino, and Native American populations. It's been well documented that over 90% of hate incidents in the Westfield School District over the last 5 years have been against Jewish students. Jewish people are not included as a focus of DEI, so I ask, why does the Westfield School District feel compelled to spend the limited funds we have on a hire that will not serve the students who are continually being targeted? Please explain.
Can I ask a question? Why is Mrs. Z's filming Emily while she's speaking? Why is that allowed? Why is a board member
This is not your time to ask that question, and we are. There is a. Well,
Can I go? Can I go? I'd like to speak.
please proceed.
Kyle George, 600 Short Hills Court. My agenda action items are personnel item P, the creation of a new position called District Coordinator of DEI, and governance C, the 5-year strategic plan. Before I begin, I need everyone to challenge their preconceived connotation of what DEI means. Of course, we want our schools to be inclusive. This isn't much more complicated than instilling the golden rule as a core value. What I'm talking about tonight is institutionalized DEI, like this new position. First, about the plan. This 20-page plan sets a very low bar and pushes an agenda that will not improve the success of our children. The document is word soup. There's nothing in it about academic excellence. 4 or 5 goals are focused on SEL and DEI. How is that strategic? It's full of wordy and vague objectives that don't really mean much, except that they'll be used to provide cover for things that we don't really want or need. Case in point is the new DEI coordinator position on the agenda. I'm going to give you 4 reasons why this position is a bad idea. Reason 1, we can't afford it. A year ago, despite the tears of current students, you laid off beloved teachers because we didn't have the money. Then you raised taxes by over 4%, which the public voted for, myself included, because they trusted you. Instead of hiring these teachers back, you're going to use those funds on a position that will cost at least $150,000 a year by my estimation. Reason 2, this position will have 0 accountability. Are you going to fire this person if there's another swastika in a Westfield school? No, you won't. Instead, this position is going to create a bunch of busy work that will not help schools be more inclusive. According to undertones in the JD, the position will also be responsible for deploying race-based preferential hiring, which violates Title VI. Reason 3, these kinds of positions have objectively failed to unite us, failed to reduce anti-Semitism, and even worse, they shield anti-Semitism under the guise of inclusivity. Just look at all the college campuses nationwide, places like Harvard and NYU, where pro-terrorist rallies were held celebrating the rape and murder of innocent Jews. College campuses have had embedded CRT and DEI administrators for years. Is this what the result of DEI looks like? People chanting from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, a terror battle cry that calls for the annihilation of Jews in Israel? Many of these administrators stood idly by and did nothing about it. Video from the University of Washington, where one of those pro-terror rallies was held, showed Jewish students pleading, crying even, with administrators to protect them, fearing for their lives. They want us dead, they said. Please help, they said. Administrators said there was nothing they could do. In 2020, this district had the Racial Literacy Initiative, which included materials that promoted the BLM organization in K-5. After Jews were slaughtered in Israel, BLM organizations around the country didn't stand in solidarity with Jews. They supported Hamas. BLM Chicago tweeted an artist rendering celebrating a paragliding Hamas terrorist. These festering wounds breeding anti-Semitism are a direct product of the moral failure to call out evil in the name of inclusivity. Reason 4, finally look at who's pushing DEI. The biggest champions of DEI on this board are the distinguished professor of critical race theory and chief anti-Israel from the river to the sea tweeter Sahar Aziz, seconded by her sole supporter, Mr. Jelinas, who is against parental rights. That should tell you something. In conclusion, I urge you to vote no on Personnel P and reconsider Governance C.
May I begin? Good evening. My name is Julie Steinberg, 109 Belmar Terrace. I want to start on a positive note and thank the earlier presenters, which gave such good information about the progress our district has made and makes me proud and happy that we are in this district. And we should all be proud of our students and staff, and even this team here who helped us achieve that. That being said, I'd like to comment first on the DEI agenda item. I'm in favor of that, and it's in part because Dr. Gonzalez committed to me in meetings and in email that DEI would include the Holocaust education curriculum that I worked very hard with many of you to get implemented. I have not seen these full changes, nor have I seen the DEI audit, but I am assuming that this person will have responsibility for ensuring that it is properly implemented. And I would ask that before that this role is approved, that a job description be shared with the public so that we would have a very clear idea on whether or not that's correct. Now, regarding 0164, the conduct of board meeting, an appropriate topic. I was shocked to see an already anemic policy pared down even further. I could not believe the removal of sections on board member responsibility and submissions, which were quite limited to begin with. Pared down detail for the action agenda, so it's not clear whether or not governance items, personnel items, finance and facility items are going to be updated. The update should be there's no update, but it should be on every single agenda item. There's no details about decorum. There's no details about who's going to be able to speak at these meetings. We have a huge eligibility of resident and non-resident policy on the agenda tonight too. We spent a lot of time on that, but we're not focusing on who represents those students at this meeting. It should be Westfield residents and staff. This is part of a larger problem, which is a failure to provide reasonable controls and structures to ensure an effective and transparent BOE. All BOE policies should be published on the schoolboard.net site. There should be other clear policy, including ethics and escalation and resolution for infractions. Rules and responsibilities need to be clearly laid out. Expectations on decorum, both for the public and for the BOE, in meetings and out of meetings, should be laid out with clear guidelines and escalation steps, as well as consequences for noncompliance. And I agree, training requirements for BOE members should be included, and they should be included in job descriptions for the BOE. I have sat through so many sessions and watched this board fail to maintain the most basic levels of decorum, sometimes refusal to confront aggression, failure to identify and escalate problems in an appropriate manner, infighting.
Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you.
Okay, Christine Binder, 4 Dudley Avenue. Why is she filming me while I'm speaking? Why are you filming speakers, okay, that are coming? But
Do you
I
have
have a
something
right.
to address at an action
I do have
item?
something to address.
This section is on
before I
action item
address
agendas
it,
only.
How do you not stop this, though? You're the president of the board.
We have a policy that does allow for this, for
You have a
recording.
policy
Yes.
for your board members
For
to
the
record?
public and a board member.
I understand this is recorded. I understand that I can't tell him what to do. Wait, let me speak. How are you letting your board members privately film with their phones?
If we have a policy that allows for that, we can review that policy, but I cannot stop it.
Okay.
Phil, you don't scare us and you won't silence us. Film away.
Okay, my question is, as far as this DEI coordinator position, it was last year that there were students that came up, they were hysterically crying, how their art teacher got fired, how their music teacher got fired. These people were let go. It was the saddest thing to see. There were students, parents, how these people, changed their children's life. Now all of a sudden we have money for a DEI coordinator position? I just don't understand this. Thank you.
My name is Tally Siegel, 321 Aranda Circle. I'm also here to address the issue of DEI coordinator, which I'm actually shocked that we have not had before. I just want to know, how many people in this room were afraid to send their children to school in the last 10 days? Well, on the morning of October 7th, many of us woke up from our sleep only to enter the greatest nightmare that we have ever had in our lives. Thousands of Hamas terrorists entered innocent towns and homes of civilians, brutally murdering, raping, burning, beheading thousands of innocent babies, children, women, and elderly.
Okay, I'm sorry, this needs to be...
This has to do with my
DEI
statement and how-
coordinator.
Yes, it exactly has to do with the DEI. I know that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is complex. However, the amount of lies and misinformation that's spread laced with hatred and anti-Semitism towards Israel is incredible. Hamas's charter states that our struggle against the Jews is very great and very serious and calls for the eventual creation of a state in Palestine in place of Israel with the obliteration and dissolution of Israel and Jewish people. They have stated this very clearly since the beginning of their existence, and this weekend they have shown us that they mean it. The scariest thing that has happened is that after this brutal attacks for the world to see, broadcast by Hamas themselves, poisonous anti-Semitic rallies and hate popped up in great volumes all over this world. In the face of this monstrous and inhuman brutality, people have sprung out to praise the largest terrorist attack that has ever occurred against the world and the largest attack against the Jewish people since the Holocaust. The very next day, before any military defense was even contemplated, a board member of this Board of Education posted on her LinkedIn profile, and I will just put one little quote out there. The few dozen Israelis being held by Hamas fighters, over 200 we've learned at this point, pales in comparison to 2 million Palestinians being held hostage in Israel in an open prison for the last 2 decades. We're talking about babies, little children, Holocaust survivors, Jews, non-Jews, and citizens of so many countries around the world. Anyone who contemplates siding with brutal murderers, let alone defend them, does not belong on our school board. This is equivalent to defending Al-Qaeda. Give my time. This is equivalent to defending Al-Qaeda on the morning of September 12th. This is not the person that I think should be looking out for our children's best interests. I also wish that Dr. Gonzalez would have taken the time to understand where we're coming from and make us and our children feel safe and welcome in the school community at this time. However, I can't thank you because you did not do that. You made us feel alienated, defenseless, insignificant, and you should really think about your statements on inclusion and diversity, anti-bullying, because Jews in this town include a minority that needs to be protected, and you have not done that over the years, so I really urge you guys to do that. I do, however, want to thank the Westfield Police Department. Your presence and support has been so evident and reassuring to us. It's a difficult.
Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you. Your time is up. Hi, my name is Lauren Goubert. I live at 886 Pennsylvania Avenue. I wanted to address Dr. Gonzalez, your statement in the beginning. I stand before you today not just as... This is not an action item, agenda item, so you would have to save this to the later, this second part of public comment.
I wanted to address DEI.
This needs to address an action item, otherwise it needs to be wait until the second section of public comment.
This has to do with DEI, so let me try, and then if you want me to stop, I will. I stand before you today not just as a Jewish resident, but as a mother of 4 children shaped by the actions and decisions made by this community. Our town thrives when it is united and all of its members feel safe, respected, and understood. Moral clarity is essential in our roles as educators and community leaders. The situation in the Middle East is undoubtedly complex, but there is a clear line regarding the actions of Hamas, a recognized terrorist organization responsible for the murders of Israelis.
I'm sorry,
both
this is not
Arabs
regarding
alike.
an action item. It is not about the DEI position. You can finish your comment in the second
When I
portion.
finish, you'll see, 'cause I-
This is not something we can listen to at this time. This is for action item, agenda items only.
How much longer is that?
That will be in the second portion
Which
after
will be
we.
when?
That will be in the second portion where you can speak about any
Like,
topic.
I know, how many more minutes is that
I
until then?
cannot answer that question. Sorry, thank you. I'd like to close the public portion, the public comment portion. Okay, I'd like the board to approve the minutes from the September 19th, 2023 board meeting and executive session minutes. Can I have a second? Thank you, Kent. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll move to the board action agenda governance. Rob?
Sir, I'd like to move board action items A through C under the governance section of the agenda. Do you have a second?
Second.
It's Brendan.
Can we have a vote?
Sahar Aziz,
Yes.
Rob Bonaccio,
Yes.
Ken Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan.
Yes.
Charles Jelinas.
Yes.
Leila Morelli, Sonal Patel,
Yes.
Kristen Sonic Schmeltz,
I abstain from A and yes to B and C.
and Mary Wickens.
Yes.
Okay, personnel, Mary?
I'd like to move items A through P under the Personnel section of tonight's agenda. Can I have a second? Okay.
Can we have a vote?
Retirements.
Oh, sorry, Dr. Gonzalez.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Retirements.
Yes, tonight we recognize the retirements of 3 members of our staff, beginning with Brenda Akinfora. Brenda began her career in the Westfield Public Schools in September 1990 in the Department of Special Services after a successful student teaching experience at Westfield High School. Brenda worked with colleagues to develop curricula and teach resource room courses such as algebra, geometry, intermediate algebra, and algebra 2. She was a pioneer for teaching the first in-class support mathematics class in the district while providing professional learning opportunities for colleagues to understand in-class support methods. Additionally, Brenda worked with the cheerleading program and brought them to second place at a competition in Delaware during her time in the district. Kimberly Rhodes. Kim Rhodes began teaching family and consumer science at Westfield High School in November 2011. Her unique teaching methods have left a lasting impact on our schools, and we are grateful for her work throughout her career. Our students were able to benefit in building life skills under her guidance in the areas of modern foods, gourmet foods, child growth, and financial literacy. We thank Kimberly for the countless valuable lessons she shared with our students since she began with us over 11 years ago. Marilyn Brady. Marilyn Brady began as a lunch aide in the Westfield Public Schools in September of 1980. As a cherished member of the Franklin School community for over 40 years, Marilyn radiated warmth and a sociable nature that endeared her to everyone she encountered, especially the children she diligently served during lunchtime. She is eagerly looking forward to devoting more time to her beloved grandchildren and great-grandchildren while also continuing to pursue her passion of bowling with her afternoon bowling league. We thank Marilyn for all of her hard work over the years as she embarks on this well-deserved retirement. We wish all 3 of these individuals a happy and healthy retirement.
Dr. Gonzalez, if I might. Just want to note that before Kim Rhodes became a teacher here in this district, she served 2 or 3, I forget, terms on this board, and became the only board member, I believe, to become a teacher in this district after service on the board.
Thank you, Brendan. Patty, can we have a vote?
Sahar Aziz,
Yes.
Rob Bonaccia,
Yes.
Ken Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan.
Yes.
Charles Delinas.
Yes.
Leila Morelli. Sonal Patel.
Yes.
Kristen Sonic Schmeltz.
Yes.
Mary Wiggins.
Yes.
Okay, next is policies. Leila or Mary?
I'd like to move items A through D under the policy section of tonight's agenda. Do I have a second? Kent?
Can we have a vote?
Sahar Aziz,
Yes.
Rob Bonaccia,
Yes.
Kent Diamond.
Yes.
Brendan Galligan.
Yes to all but 0164, which I vote no.
Charles Delinas.
Yes.
Leila Morelli. Sonal Patel.
Yes.
Kristen Sonic Schmeltz.
Yes.
Mary Wiggins.
Yes.
So did you do finance and facilities?
Did I skip it?
Yeah.
Finance and facilities, Ken, is that you? Brendan?
Yeah, that's fine, thanks. I'd like to move items A through Q under the finance section of tonight's agenda, but I also want to highlight the donations, right? So thank you to Montclair State University, Department of Broadcast and Media Operations for donating 7 used Canon 8A10 cameras for Westfield High School television studio. Thank you to Luke Lazinski for donating 4 used instruments, 1 Yamaha YSL 35 trombone, 1 clarinet, 1 Mendini trumpet, and 1 Pearl Bell kit for the Westfield Public Schools. Thank you to the Franklin PTO for a donation of $839.99 to purchase a new replacement oven for Franklin's Kitchen, which will benefit the STEAM program and cooking classes. And thank you to Lincoln PTO for the outdoor flowers, plants, and a buddy bench for the Lincoln Playground. Thank you to all 4 of those. Any questions, or may I have a vote?
You need
A
a
second, I'm sorry. Thank you, Kristen.
Can we have a vote?
Sahar Aziz,
Yes.
Rob Bonaccia,
Yes.
Ken Diamond.
Yes.
Brendan Galligan.
Yes.
Charles Delinas.
Yes.
Leila Morelli. Sonal Patel.
Yes.
Kristen Sonic Schmeltz.
Yes.
Mary Wiggins.
Yes.
Okay, curriculum instruction and assessment, Kristen?
I make a motion for the board to consider action items A through C. A, ask the board to approve the 3 field trips at WHS, 1 for Project 79 and 2 for U.S. History 1. B, ask the board to approve 4 intern teacher positions across McKinley, Washington, and Wilson. And C, ask the board to approve the district's nursing service plan. Can I get a second? Mary? Mary?
Can we have a vote?
Sahar Aziz,
Yes.
Rob Bonaccia,
Yes.
Ken Diamond.
Yes.
Brendan Galligan.
Yes.
Charles Delinas.
Yes.
Leila Morelli. Sonal Patel.
Yes.
Kristen Sonic Schmeltz.
Yes.
Mary Wiggins.
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to acknowledge notes for the record. And at this time, is there any unfinished business regarding board business only? New business? Liaison reports?
Yes. As board liaison to the Union County Chapter of the New Jersey School Board Association, I attended their scheduled meeting on October 11, 2023, virtually, which was held in Garwood. In attendance as well was Dr. Gonzalez and Brendan Galligan in person, and Sonal Patel and Mary Wickens were also online. The main topic of the evening involved the passage of A-5060 S-3440, signed into law on July 3rd, 2023, which expands the definition of permissible sick leave for teachers and staff in school districts across New Jersey. Whereas prior to these amendments, school employees were permitted to use sick leave for personal disability due to an illness or injury, or if they or someone in their immediate household needed to quarantine due to a contagious illness, the expanded sick leave policy will cover the following circumstances, as summarized by the New Jersey School Board Association: for their own personal illness or injury, for the diagnosis of, care of, treatment of, or recovery from mental or physical illness, injury, or other adverse health condition, or for preventative medical care, to aid or care for a family member for the same reasons, For circumstances resulting from the employee or a family member being the victim of domestic or sexual violence in order to obtain specific services, for the death of a family member for up to 7 days, and for several other more loosely associated reasons with health and welfare. This new law will be taken into effect and most likely judicially tested over the coming months and years, and will have a dynamic impact on every school board and school district's ability to plan for their year. School boards in Union County were advised on addressing this expansion of sick leave in their own policies and procedures manuals to account for the amended law. The next scheduled meeting of the NJSBA will be on October 23rd through October 26th in Atlantic City, involving various workshops for new and returning school board members across New Jersey. Thanks.
Thank you, CJ. Any other liaison reports? Rob?
Sure. The high school PTSO met on October 12th. Casey, as part of his very able representation of the high school constituents, also attends that meeting and works with the PTSO to help secure funding for different SGA and other student events. It really is very much a partnership between the PTSO and the SGA. So he also gets out of class for a little bit too, so I don't think that hurts. So I want to thank you for always being at those meetings and obviously recognize the board of the PTSO for all they do to support not just student events, but also our faculty and staff at the high school. One very important thing that the PTSO is supporting, and if you look at, I believe, both the PTSO newsletter and just the weekly letter for the high school will highlight this. We talked about some of the things that the increase in budget helped us provide. And counseling services are significant among those. There is a significant increase in counseling services being provided and opportunities for students to interact with counselors, in large part because there are many more of them. If you're looking for the type of support that our counselors are providing to our students of all levels, we focus very often on seniors and juniors who are preparing for college, but the expansion of our counseling program has allowed for a lot of what I knew when type programs where seniors will actually discuss with high school freshmen, the things they wish they knew at when they first started high school and the rest. There is a comprehensive schedule for that work. Again, either in the newsletter or on the website, maybe actually be in the full high school website. So I encourage you to look at that and see all the services that we've been able to expand and that the PTSO helps support.
Thank you, Rob. At this time, sorry, go ahead, Layla.
I went to the Union County Educational Services Commission Board of Directors meeting on October 1st. It was really actually a very interesting meeting. They are starting to begin their strategic planning, so I look forward to see how that is going to develop with such a unique Board of Directors. They're also looking to hire an assistant BA, and I think it's interesting to see the trends across the districts. Additionally, they reported that they're trialing the use of Stop It, which is an anonymous way of reporting anything that's troublesome, with the hope that they will increase the accessibility to mental services and increase students and staff's feeling of being safe in the environment with this application.
Thank you, Layla. At this time, I'd like to recognize the public for comments. During this portion of the meeting, members of the public are invited to address the Board of Education on any topic. The board requests that individuals state their name and address for the record and asks that all remarks be directed to the board president, not to individual board members or staff. The board asks that members of the public be courteous and mindful of the rights of other individuals when speaking. Specifically, comments regarding personnel matters are discouraged and cannot be responded to by the board. Students and employees have specific legal rights afforded by the laws of New Jersey. The board bears no responsibility, nor will it be liable for any comments made by members of the public. If a matter concerning a district staff member is of interest or concern to a resident, the matter should be referred to the responsible building principal, superintendent of schools, or the Board of Education, either by telephone, letter, or email. Although the board may not respond to items raised during the public forum, all public comments will be considered. Please note that if any member of the public becomes disruptive during the meeting, the board president may terminate the participant's statement. Continued disruptions may result in removal from the meeting or adjournment of the meeting. Each speaker's statement will be limited to 3 minutes in duration.
Okay. Tell me when to start.
You can go ahead.
Ms. Aziz, as a student at Westfield High School...
Please state your name and
I'm
address.
sorry. Leo, 123 Elm Street. As a student at Westfield High School, I cannot overstate the distress I've experienced.
Point of order.
Due,
You have to give your last name and your real address.
all right. Leo, can I start over then?
Yeah, you can start over.
Okay, sure. Okay, I'm on the clock. So, Leo Saltstein, 123 Elm Street. As a student at Westfield High School, I cannot overstate the distress I've experienced due to the pain from your dissemination of false information. I often wonder, why do you do this? Why do you persist in these actions? You hide your anti-Semitic rhetoric behind a pro-Palestinian agenda. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is complex and emotionally charged. I get it. But it has no place on the school board, where every student should feel represented, and none should feel discriminated against or marginalized. Mrs. Aziz, you are not a senator. You are not a congressman. You are a Board of Ed member. And as a member, you are elected to act in the student's best interest. You have failed in this regard. Your actions have been particularly damaging in light of the recent terrorist attack, during which you seemingly justified it and made statements that I found deeply troubling. You made me, a student, feel unwelcomed in my own school, which should be the primary goal of a Board of Ed member. After much reflection, I am left with the conclusion that your actions are driven by a desire for attention. It appears as though you are more interested in building your personal brand, promoting your book, and securing television appearances than addressing the genuine needs of Westfield students. Your desire for a narrative that portrays you as a victim of racism overlooks the fact that the issue is rooted in your words and actions and not in who you are and where you come from. Because in Westfield, everyone is welcome. The plain truth is that, thank you. The plain truth is that you seem to prioritize your professional advancement over advocating for the real needs of Westfield students. And most importantly, securing the best future that the children of Westfield deserve. Mrs. Aziz, you became a board member for all the wrong reasons. This job is about the students, not your own professional gain. You're not going to be an AOC, you're not going to be some big politician, you're just here to do school stuff. Not to spew lies and anti-Semitism. I have a math test, so thank you and have a good night. And I'm good friends with Youssef, by the way. He's a great guy. Youssef is a great guy.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
I have a point of order, Sonal. A point of order, I have a point of order, because I'm only saying a point of order.
Explain your point of order.
Well, first, a couple of the gentlemen in the front are making me uncomfortable. It's distracting me from being able to listen to the public.
Point of privilege.
Point of privilege. Okay. It's just making me uncomfortable.
Sir, please sit
I want to
down.
focus. What I really want to do is focus on what the public has to say. I agree with you. Though I'm not pitting one against the other. I am saying I am comfortable with the whole situation. I want to listen to the public.
Can we get back to public comment? I think it's Lauren's turn to speak. If the members of the public become disruptive, we cannot continue with our public comment. So I'd really like to give everybody the opportunity, all these people lined up, to say what they came here to say.
Also, if video recording becomes disruptive, we can ask them to stop.
Okay, so it's disruptive, so can we make a motion to stop the video? Because it's
Yes,
disruptive?
I make a motion to stop the video recording.
I second it.
Sir, we're going to take a motion on this, and I think,
Can we discuss it before we vote? So one thing we just have to consider is the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution.
Sahar, we cannot just speak out whenever. I'm going to call a recess until we can figure out what to do with the recording. I'm calling a 10-minute recess. I need a second. Thank you, CJ.
All in favor?
Second.
Okay.
Oh, my God. We're gonna. Can I go to the bathroom? I'm gonna run to the bathroom. Is that okay?
You don't, there doesn't need to be a motion. If people don't want to comply, then you can do it. There's no need, there's no requirement. There's absolutely no requirement.
So you just gotta make a request that they stop.
Yeah.
And that's it. Yeah, there's no motion. Yeah, they don't stop, there's nothing we can do.
0178. That's recording by the district, and then that's recording by the public. Yep, that's right. Agreed. I would say it should include everyone. That's what I would say.
I'm willing to follow the rules, but we just, that we think any violence.
Then they need to be removed.
It's clear that you go ask the police to remove them. There is no negotiation.
All or nothing.
Gonzalez, your days are numbered, buddy. You're not going to be the superintendent much longer.
Right.
We're going to be here every meeting. Every meeting we're going to be here.
I'll go receive everybody.
She ruins your whole meeting, your whole agenda. Gonzalez. She distracts from everything, Gonzalez. You've lost complete control. Smile. Everyone in this room, keep smiling, buddy. Every 3 years. You lost control of the whole district. You got nothing. You got nothing. You're being carried around on an ice. You got this one.
Yeah, no, I don't want to put you in that weird position. It's not for you before it ever gets. Thank you. So we're gonna stop. We're gonna ask everyone to stop recording.
Okay, we're going to reconvene with the public comments. However, due to the distracting nature of the video recording, we're going to ask everybody in the audience to please put away their recording devices. That is based on policy 0170. It is at the discretion of the president to be able to put that away. And we ask that everybody just stop, please, making comments from the audience and allow the speaker to, I think, begin her 3 minutes. Hello? Okay. My name is Lauren Goubert. I live at 886 Pennsylvania Avenue. I stand before you today not just as a Jewish resident, but as a mother of 4 children shaped by the actions and decisions made by this community. Our town thrives when it is united and all its members feel safe, respected, and understood. Moral clarity is essential in our roles as educators and community leaders. The situation in the Middle East is undoubtedly complex, but there is a clear line regarding the actions of Hamas, a recognized terrorist organization responsible for the murder of Israelis, both Jews and Arabs alike. Neutrality in the face of such acts is not a virtue. It is a failure to uphold the principles of justice and human rights. Our educational leaders should be able to condemn such actions and equivocation. In our quest for knowledge and growth, part of learning includes making judgments about our actions and the actions of others. How can we impart these lessons to our children of, for example, being an upstander and not a bystander, if those at the helm of their education system shy away from making clear moral stances? Social media has given us all a platform to express our beliefs, but with this platform comes great responsibility, especially when one holds a position of leadership and influence. Comments that further divide our community not only harm our unity, but also undermine the values that we strive to instill in our young ones. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends." Our community is built on respect, understanding, and moral clarity. I urge the board and Dr. Gonzalez to please reflect on these values and consider the concerns that are raised tonight seriously. The actions and decisions made today will undoubtedly shape the Westfield of tomorrow. Thank you.
Just so you know, he's still filming, just so you know. No, you just put it in your pocket, but you were. I saw you. It's right there. Okay, okay, okay.
Please state your name and address for the
Christine
record for
Rinder,
public
4 Rudley
comment.
Avenue. I'm here tonight to ask if the Westfield Board and Dr. Gonzalez are taking any action to get Sahar Aziz removed. Over the past several years, I've listened to many people share their concerns about Ms. Aziz and their angst as to whether or not her personal biased opinions could affect making equitable decisions on behalf of all students. Last week, after the attacks on Israel, I too sent our school board an email expressing how horrified I was to see a tweet that she posted on social media shortly after over 1,200 innocent people were brutally killed, including babies and children. Ms. Aziz, a college law professor and social justice lawyer and member of our school board, tweeted, Hashtag Israel can't imprison 2 million Gazas without paying a cruel price. Really? Where was the compassion for the innocent lives of children that were lost? Where was the remorse that this even happened? There wasn't any, but there was rationalization as well as a, well, that's what you get attitude from her. I'm not here to debate with Mrs. E since I truly have no words for her, who could gloat over such atrocities. However, I am here to find out if our board, Mr. Gonzalez, or the board's legal team have taken any steps to get her removed. I'm curious to know if any of you have shared Mrs. E's disturbing tweets to the New Jersey State School Board, or if the school board has filed their own ethics complaint against her. I personally know of several students and families who understandably feel anxious, uneasy, and upset after seeing Mrs. E's tweets, and yet she still is part of making decisions on their behalf. Isn't it a priority for Dr. Gonzalez and the board to ensure that all students feel safe and fairly represented despite their race or religion? I mean, isn't that what DEI is all about? Between an ethics complaint that has already been filed against Mrs. E's and a petition on change.org to have her removed, I'm not sure how anyone could say that she is carrying out her responsibilities and working together with her fellow board members so that the board is well run, which is stipulated in the New Jersey Board of Ethics. As the other day, that petition had well over 4,000 signatures on it. However, for some reason, the petition has now been removed and under review. I would even go so far as to say that many people on this board would like to see Mrs. E's removed. Also, since many of them voted to have her removed last month, but then later decided not to for some reason. What is the holdup? Why aren't actions being taken to have a board member removed who was missing 48% of the board meetings and who was defending brutal attacks on innocent people? I understand that people are entitled to their own personal opinions, but how heinous do they have to get? This has nothing to do with Mrs. Z's race or religion, and I would find it equally horrifying if any race or religion, including my own, had triumphed over brutally taking innocent lives. Haven't we all wasted enough time on Mrs. Z's need to be focused on? Is the majority of our community not tired of her fear tactics by bringing in her own special interest groups whose children aren't even in the school board, nor do they even reside in Westfield, yet they're called in to speak on her behalf? Has everyone on this board not had enough of their time being constantly monopolized by Mrs. E's, calling everyone a racist, including her fellow board members, all while being the...
Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you.
Darren Composto, 929 Columbus Avenue. I'm a free speech absolutist, so this is hard for me to do. I hate cancel culture and the self-censorship that it forces upon people. That being said, your speech and your actions have consequences. And when you draw a moral equivalence between the unfortunate collateral damages that occurs when defending your country's very existence, and you compare that to the deliberate murder of civilians and children in an effort to ignite a holy war, that has consequences. When you believe that an organization whose stated purpose is the elimination of a Jewish state is simply doing the work of decolonization, that has consequences. And when your defense of that organization is that the babies weren't beheaded but merely murdered, that has consequences. Mrs. E's is certainly entitled to her opinions, and she's allowed to profess them publicly and loudly. Honestly, I prefer that people tell us who they are so we know how to treat them. But when who you are is someone that supports the elimination of an entire nation, and make no mistake about it, that is what from the river to the sea means. It means you believe that there should be no nation of Israel in the Middle East. When that is who you are, I believe that disqualifies you from serving this community and from helping guide and in fact lead the education of our children. I know Mrs. E is up for re-election in 2024, and I'm confident that based on who she has shown us that she is, the voters will not reward her with another term. But I don't think we can wait that long. And I call upon Mrs. E to step down from her position on the Board of Ed. Now, I know that I was allotted 3 minutes. We have 3 minutes to speak, and we have over a minute left. I'd like to use this minute to do something that we haven't done in our schools yet, and I'd like a minute for the public here and the board to stand in a moment of silence to honor all of the innocent lives in Israel and Gaza that have been lost in the past week due to the savage and barbaric actions of Hamas. Thank you. And I would like it noted for the record that every member of the board stood up. Thank you.
Lindsay Betzalel, 700 Prospect. I'm here tonight to express my profound disappointment in the statement, Dr. Gonzalez, that you shared with our community last week and tonight as well. I'm shocked that you did not offer clear condemnation of Hamas, a terrorist organization which proudly and publicly executed over 1,400 people. The terrorist attacks that took place on October 7th were not ongoing events in the Middle East. They were barbaric attacks directed at innocent people in Israel. Speaking tonight as a Jewish woman married to an Israeli man, we are not okay. In America and around the world, protests against Israel have included Nazi imagery and language, Stars of David drawn on the homes of Jewish families in Europe. Is that what's next in Westfield? We've already had swastikas in our schools and on our playgrounds, in the bathrooms. Westfield Jewish families are afraid to put "I stand with Israel" signs on their lawns because they worry what will be done to their homes. There are fifth grade students in your schools saying, "Mommy, please don't do that. Are they going to hurt us? Because that shows we're Jewish." You have other fifth grade students asking their parents, "Should I lie if someone asks me if I'm Jewish? They're going to hurt me if I say yes." This is unacceptable. The Jewish community needs to hear clear voices of support from the top. Anti-Semitic violence has increased 300%. Crowds at colleges and universities are chanting, "Gas the Jews." This is absolutely terrifying, and the leaders of our school district here are doing nothing to ensure that my Israeli-American children are safe inside the school walls. I'm not blind to the fact that we aren't the only community in pain. The devastating murder of a 6-year-old Palestinian-American Muslim boy is simply the trajectory of unencumbered hate, and we shouldn't stand for any of it. Dr. Gonzalez, you said that words matter. They really, really do, and I hope that you can openly condemn Hamas, say Hamas by name, say the word terror, which the attacks were, and openly address that in a new statement. Ms. Aziz, I don't have to say much because I'm sure many other people here will. You can smile at me all you want because shame on you. You cannot stand up there and claim to be unbiased when you decide what my children learn in our schools. I call on you to resign from the board immediately.
And just so you know, when you told her to stop videoing, she still videoed it. That's right. Shame on you.
Ethan Prosnitz, 64 Boulevard. I'm a 10-year resident of Westfield, a Tamaqua school parent, and the senior rabbi of the second largest Reform synagogue in New Jersey. The second largest Reform synagogue here in New Jersey. As you can see, our Jewish community in Westfield is hurting. Last week was the largest and most vicious murder of Jews since the Holocaust. Jews, young and old, children, babies, adults, and the elderly were brutally terrorized and killed in their homes, at bus stops, at a music festival. There are members of our school community who have friends who are hostages, who have buried loved ones, who are praying for the injured. The pain is great, and as leaders of our community, you need to know that. Our Jewish community in Westfield is scared. This past Friday, only 45% of families sent their children to our synagogue's preschool. 45% because they were frightened about Hamas's day of rage and their children's safety. We are scared with the rise of anti-Semitism, the swastikas, the kill the Jew chants that are taking place right now in our country. The fear is great, and as leaders of this community, you need to know that. Our Jewish community in Westfield needs to hear voices of support and see actions. Last week, we did not. We heard silence, we heard hate, we heard platitudes. As I shared with Dr. Gonzalez, I do believe that the past 3 years, our schools have done a good job in combating anti-Semitism and other hate and biased incidents. We must continue to do that, and I'm here as a resource for all of you. Tonight, there are members of the Westfield school community that are hurting, who are scared, who want support. Please listen to them. Listen to their concerns and their children's concerns. There may also be voices from outside our Westfield community. And while New Jersey law allows them to be here, this is the Westfield Board of Education. Don't prioritize their voices. Focus on your constituents, listen to their pain, listen to their fear, and ask how you as a leader can support us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First, I'm going to apologize because there's no way in hell I'm going to sound as good as that. So apologies and, whatever else. Also, I sanitized this by putting it through ChatGPT so that I couldn't get, offensive or anything like that. My name is JJ. I live at, 706 4th Avenue. The reason that I actually gave not the right address is because everybody here is half shit scared that they're going to be attacked by somebody that gets posted because we had to give our actual address. Now, I know mine's public record, so you can find out anyway. And thank you to you guys for being there always to support us and take care of us. But that's literally part of the issue tonight, that people are scared to put that out. When my wife is up here saying that my son's friend at school is petrified that her mother's going to put an I stand with Israel sign, what the hell has Westfield come to? So now I'll go ahead and read it. I hope this letter finds you in good health and high spirits. I'm writing to you as a concerned parent and an active member of our community to address an important issue that pertains to our educational environment. Words matter. You are 100% right. So you shouldn't backtrack by not saying a goddamn word. They hold immense power in shaping the minds of our students. It's my strong belief that we should not shy away from calling terrorists what they are by name. If the U.S. government can do it, you're a Board of Ed, you can do it. It's not that hard. And honestly, it's not about me, and I don't need the platitudes. It's about the sake of our students' education and understanding what's right in the world. If the U.S. says they're terrorists, guess what? U.S. education system, they're terrorists. In recent years, our society faced numerous challenges by terrorism, both domestically and internationally. Right, we're going to be as safe and nice as possible. The impact of these events extends beyond our adult population and has significant repercussions on the young, impressionable minds of our children. And it's in this context that I implore you to and the school district to just recognize the importance of naming and labeling these acts and individuals for what they are, which is terrorism and terrorists. You can say it in your letter. You can also say that we don't want suffering in Gaza and that Israel's government does wrong things. Sure, every government does, but actually state it, address it, say something. Don't just gloss over it, Jesus. In recent years, I went through that already. By doing so, we would actually take a proactive step to provide our students with a clear understanding of the issues that they might encounter in the world. Failing to call acts of terrorism by their rightful name will just lead to confusion, misinformation, and in some cases, fear, like my kid's fear that he was going to go to school and get hurt, and instead I had to have Dr. Duncan go speak to him because you wouldn't send an email. Moreover, labeling terrorists as such ensures that we don't inadvertently perpetuate biases or stereotypes that can unfairly stigmatize certain communities or religions. I have Muslim friends. I have people that I love that are not Jews, and that's okay. Not every Muslim's a bad person by any means. You should take the individual as an individual, sure, but terrorists are terrorists. You label them as a group. My time's up. I'll get over it.
Thank you. Your time's up.
And honestly, thank you for your dedication to the kids in this school. I hope to God you guys can set this right.
Moral support. Also, everything going on, not super comfortable. Oh, sorry. Okay, name Kara Schultz, address 756 East Broad. I'd like to bring to your attention a petition that was created last week. A fellow Westfield resident also brought it up. In just 48 hours, this petition garnered over 4,000 signatures from our community. The petition brought to light content that was being shared by a Westfield Board of Education member on publicly accessible social media platforms. And there's a few things to note that I'd like to bring to your attention. The petition, which garnered over 4,000 votes, that's 13% of the total population of Westfield alone. I'd also like to point out that is also more votes than any one candidate of the Board of Education received during the 2020 election. Based on this, it is safe to say there is a significant number of people that have found fault with the content that was shared on publicly accessible social media. According to the bylaws 0169, board member use of electronic communication and social networks, the policy respects the right of board members to use social networks. However, board members shall recognize they are held to a higher standard than the general public with regard to standards of conduct and ethics. A board member's use of social networks shall not damage the reputation of the school district, employees, students, or their families. Board members who use social networks shall ensure their conduct is appropriate for our Board of Education member. Board members should exercise care in setting appropriate boundaries between their personal and public online behavior. Understanding what is private in the digital world often has possibilities of becoming public, even without their knowledge or consent. Board members are advised to uphold the district's value of respect for any individual and avoid making defamatory statements about the Board of Education, the school district, employees, students, or their families. I want to highlight the fact that as a board member and as a community, we need to respect all the families in our town. Given the recent terrorist attacks, and that's what they were, there are many families in our community that are directly impacted. And if they aren't directly impacted, they are affected. We are all affected, and we are not okay. Days after the terrorist attacks, there was a day of global jihad declared. Many of our community members were afraid for their safety, the safety of their families, and for the safety of their children in our schools. We as a community need to understand that words can be hurtful. They can cause pain, they can cause anxiety, fear, they can drive destruction, and they can drive violence. You simply have to be human to care, to love, and to carefully choose what words.
Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you. Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you.
Kyle George, 600 Short Hills. I want to start by saying thank you to the young man up front here who provided more moral clarity than anyone else in this school district in a few short sentences. Thank you. On October 7th, thousands of Hamas terrorists slaughtered over 1,400 Israelis, kidnapped at least 200 others, and gravely injured thousands more. They burned families. They killed infants while they slept, killed children in front of their parents, mothers in front of children. They raped women and murdered grandmothers in wheelchairs. This is the worst kind of evil. It's just horrible. Jews and non-Jews with morals across the world have spent the last week mourning the loss of life. Unfortunately, these attacks have also covered all the anti-Semites around the world as well. So what wisdom did Sahar Aziz, quote-unquote distinguished professor at Rutgers who runs the Center for Security, Race and Rights, and a quote-unquote expert on the Middle East, offer in the immediate aftermath of these terror attacks? Well, she immediately took to social media and offered her support, not for innocent Jews, but for Palestinians, and she provided moral justification, moral cover to the actions of the Hamas terrorists that attacked Israel. She tweeted, quote, "Israel can't imprison Gazans without paying a cruel price," end quote. That was the mild stuff. She then retweeted denials that women had been raped and that babies had been killed because there wasn't immediate photographic evidence. Israeli soldiers reported it, but no, Aziz tweeted it didn't happen. Aziz retweeted this propaganda that a kidnapped Jewish young woman who was seen in raw video footage naked and bloodied in the back of a terrorist pickup truck wasn't paraded naked, but was just being taken to a hospital by the terrorists. Turns out there were no rapes or beheaded babies, the tweet said. In the week that followed, she's kept it up. She's kept up at it, tweeting all the latest Hamas denial propaganda and false reports. She's called Israel perpetrators of genocide and war crimes. Does Israel not have a right to defend itself? Yesterday, I watched a Rutgers public webinar entitled Gaza Teach-In, hosted by Sahar Aziz. This was an almost 2-hour one-sided Palestinian propaganda session. A slide called Hamas a Charity. Sahar stopped recording for Q&A, but people captured the live video of what was said. During one answer, Aziz claimed, without disclaimer, that it's unethical for school administrators to send out messages in support of Israel. Maybe that explains the weak district messaging. And finally, she said that supporting Israel is supporting genocide and murder. And I quote, she said this, and what we're seeing consistently is that it is all we stand with Israel and that's it, which of course now is being interpreted as we stand for genocide. We stand for the indiscriminate murder of Palestinians. All this is unfortunately no surprise to me. However, the brazen slap in the face to all Jews of Westfield is something even I wouldn't have expected. For those of you who haven't been paying attention, I've been talking about her tweets and views since January 2022. Initially, the board issued a statement supporting her. Where is the statement denouncing her actions now? As the Westfield leader said, Sahar Aziz should resign.
Thank you. My name is Michael Sherman, and I live at 704 4th Avenue. Dr. Gonzalez, you stated that words matter, yet you failed to use them. Earlier, the board asked how our test scores compare to other districts. I'm going to tell you how your statement compares to other districts. First, I will read you the statements from the Scotch Plains superintendent. It begins, over the last few days, our world has witnessed acts of terrorism in Israel that are devastating. I'll read you the statement issued by the Summit superintendent after they had a meeting just like this one. The horrific anti-Semitic attack on Israel by the terrorist group Hamas has profoundly affected our community and continues to do so. We've been hearing from members of the Summit community about the profound sadness surrounding the tragic loss of life and continued violence in the region. I could go on, but I won't. Your silence is deplorable. I'll read one more from one of your own. The Edison principal, who saw some morality and corrected herself from her initial statement that followed your ways. She said, I have heard from numerous members of the community about how my choice of words describing the terrorist attacks in Israel and the war it provoked was disheartening, minimizing, and inaccurate. In my attempt to avoid strong words, I caused harm, and for that I apologize. I will leave you with this. Hamas has no place in this world. Your acceptance and in turn justification of these acts is horrifying as a human being, let alone as supposed educators and leaders of this school's community. I ask that you all go home and ask yourself why anyone should feel safe with their children under your watch. And I call on you, Dr. Gonzalez, to resign, given you have proven you're incapable of leading this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Erez Lieberman, 12 Normandy Drive. Disturbing, disgusting, demoralizing. These words we could use to describe the horrific attacks of Hamas against innocent women, young kids, babies, children. They're also the words I use to describe your inaction. Now, I'll tell you that I would have you stand right here, right now, to finally change this inaction and do something. You board members individually, I don't blame just Mr. Gonzalez. You are all on the board and have an opportunity to do it. I will gladly yield my time. It's against your rules. Don't worry, the board won't do anything against you. I assure you, we have seen that in action. One Hamas terrorist killed an elderly grandmother, took her phone, used her phone to video her dead, then went on her Facebook account from her phone and posted the account onto her Facebook account. It's disturbing to watch her granddaughter talk about this exact action and how she found out about her grandmother's death by watching her grandmother's Facebook account. In light of that, one hateful board member decided to give moral cover to everything Hamas did. Sahar Aziz right there. Facing immense criticism for such moral cover, she could have easily done what so many people have done. Condemn Hamas's terrorist actions, condemn those actions while standing for the rights of Palestinians. Rights that I support too. I want a two-state solution. She could have done that. The president did that. Our mayor did that. So many people did that. Not her, and not you all, which is amazing to me. And much more demoralizing than her actions is the fact that you all stand silent, looking at me in silence. Break the silence right now. This district claims there's no place for hate, yet says nothing in response to hateful statements by a board member. Now, maybe if there was no hateful statement by a board member, maybe you say, well, we don't get involved in that. But there were hateful statements by a board member. There was a reason to do it, to get involved, and you chose not to do it. That silence is a louder statement than any other statement out there, and you continue to do it. Break it right now. I yield again my 40 seconds. No, nothing.
No speaking.
I don't understand it. It could be anti-Semitism, but maybe I'm naive. Maybe I'm naive and I want to keep my naivety that it isn't that. Maybe you got some horrible legal advice. I'm a lawyer. I dispense legal advice all the time. It is advice. You can say, you know what? Maybe it's litigation risk, and we're still going to stand for what's right. I'm very disappointed to see that you have done none of that.
Eric Costa, 2654 Prospect. I didn't come here before you tonight to speak about Aziz. We all know who she is. We've known for several years. But fear not, as her involvement with the education of our children ends at this March, the latest. What's of more concern to me is our superintendent. Our superintendent waited 5 days to issue a statement on the horrific terrorist attack in Israel. The statement he did eventually release was feckless nonsense about ongoing events in the Middle East. It made no mention of terrorism, Jews, or Israel. The brutal terrorist blitzkrieg on Israeli civilians who were attacked simply for being Jewish included rape, beheading of babies, torture, burnings alive, eyes being cut out, mothers being shot and then having the babies ripped from their wombs, with the fetal babies in turn being stabbed to ensure they were dead. The stories and images conjure the worst of those from the Holocaust. This was a unique moment in human history where there were no sides to be taken. There were no justifications to be debated. But rather, this was a moment when every sane person in the world, with even a semblance of moral clarity, quickly and unequivocally acknowledged the terrorism in Israel for what it was: sheer, brutal terror with no end goal whatsoever but the savage murder and torture of Jews. That is why the President of the United States, the Governor of New Jersey, our town's mayor, our town's police chief, all recognized this for what it was and called out what it was by name: the murder and rape and torture of Jews, terrorism. I've heard from more parents than I can count who have written to the superintendent imploring him to recognize his mistake, including myself. And from what I understand, not one parent has received a reply back from the superintendent. The rabbis of the local congregations wrote to him, one in an open published letter. The head of the local JCC wrote, no response. The superintendent is, of course, not alone in failing to recognize the seriousness of the terror attack in Israel. Many of us received emails at work that were similarly desultory. But after hearing from their employees and being educated on the mistakes they made, many new statements were issued acknowledging the pain and fear felt by the Jews the world over. Even in Westfield, some of us received an email from a principal that got it wrong on the first try, but who then had the fortitude to admit they'd made a mistake in the first email and later issued a corrective letter taking ownership of their mistake and hitting the right tone to meet the moment. But from the superintendent, continued silence. I can't know what is truly in the heart and mind of the superintendent, but what I do know is that there is one binding tie amongst all those who didn't call this a terrorist act out for what it was, and that is anti-Semitism and hatred of Jews. I, for one, think Gonzalez owes us an explanation, and if he can't show just cause for his choice of words or apparent utter contempt for parents such that he doesn't feel he owes anyone a response, I hope this board would revisit his contract with the district. Building character is part of our curriculum in Westfield. Perhaps some of our administrators need a lesson themselves. Those words may sound harsh, but the Jewish people have seen firsthand what happens when we stay silent, lay low, keep to ourselves, hoping to be left alone. No more! Never again!
We cannot continue this meeting with all the outbursts from the public. We have a few speakers left that really need your respect and your time. that you were given when you spoke.
Get used to it. Every meeting now. You guys can respect us. Oh, shut up, Aziz.
Can I begin, please?
Please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Julie Steinberg, and I actually have never been scared to give my address before, but in lieu of the videotaping and I also refuse to debase myself.
I consider that a direct threat.
And Mrs. Eads,
To the safety
this is
of my family.
Mrs. Eads, this is my time, not yours. And that is the problem. That is the problem right there. Just because you have first right amendments doesn't mean you have to exercise them every time. Just because you are allowed to take video doesn't mean you should. Just because you hear something in this audience doesn't mean that you, like every person here, shouldn't refrain. You show absolutely no ability to manage or comport yourself in a way that helps this district. You do everything to undermine not only your own opinions, but to create fear and anger. I have never, ever been so upset in my life about what has gone down here today. And I have tried so many times to look for center ground. Stop. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just because it's legal doesn't make it ethical. My whole intention of coming here tonight was to take down the temperature, but now I feel it, and I can't seem to calm my heart. And Dr. Gonzalez, shame on you. I wrote to you in good faith. I did the same thing with the Holocaust education initiatives, hoping that there could be some sort of understanding. And as was pointed out, many other people wrote to you, and you chose not to respond at all with the same silence. All I have to say about the complete failure of leadership on both sides here at this board today, despite that, I continue to have great faith in our community and in our schools, in large part because of our students, both on the board and those who have spoken tonight, who had the clarity and the correct temperament in terms of how they addressed this audience. I am so grateful that our students and the teachers who teach them are better than everyone sitting up here tonight, particularly those I've mentioned. Set a better example. Be an upstander. Figure out what's ethical and what's right, not just what advances your purposes or what's just a reaction. You are all decent people at heart, I believe that. But your behavior, your comportment, whether it's silence or the inability to stop talking, in moments where we are suffering, where people are terrified, this community, I am talking about this community, do something and do better.
Good evening, Amy Heather, 311 Central Avenue. I come here more because I just have a question. I don't know if it's allowed to ask questions or not, but I know that the Board of Ed is voted by the township. My question is, Dr. Gonzalez, if you do not make things right, I have to tell you, tonight my husband and I were talking about if by the time our children get to a certain age and a certain point in the school system and you are still superintendent and you have not made things right, we are going to either move out of town or switch our kids to a private school because we do not feel safe here. So with that said, how do we change you? How do we get you to either apologize to us or how do we get a new superintendent in our district? Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Kim Van Ardenbraun, 26 Mohawk Trail. I'm here as a concerned citizen, a member of the Westfield community of 16 years, and a parent to 3 children in the district. And I'd also like to mention that I was here in March of 2017, and the individual who brought the ADL's No Place for Hate program to Dr. Dolan and the Westfield Board of Education. The program has been successfully adopted as a modicum of support for the Jewish community and those that are marginalized across our district, empowering students and our community to speak out and educate against hate of any form. My children have been active leaders with this program as it demonstrates the values that our family and we believe our community need to demonstrate. Hate has no place in Westfield. My ask tonight is for a public statement from the Board of Ed and the Superintendent that Board Member Aziz is speaking in her personal capacity and that her personal views do not represent those of the Board of Education or our community. My second ask is that the Board of Ed and Superintendent condemn all acts of terrorism, including the acts of terrorism carried out by Hamas, which has been designated as a terrorist organization by the U.S. government on Israeli civilians. It would behoove the district to put this statement out to ease the pain and divisiveness currently felt by many Westfield community residents, as vocalized very passionately tonight. We want what's best for our school district and community. Our students feeling safe is critical. The Board of Ed and Superintendent's leadership against hate and terrorism explicitly are tantamount. The geopolitical conflict is far too complex to discuss here, and Ms. Aziz is entitled to her personal opinions and voices, but not as a representative of our school board. At the last school board meeting, Waya Rashid from the Islamic Center from Union County stated that mental health and self-belonging are of utmost importance to our students and that they feel comfortable at school. Diversity is important in Westfield, unquote. I could not agree more. Yet having an anti-Semitic, anti-Israel member who supports terrorism as a voice on our school board cannot make any of our students or their families feel safe, comfortable, or that we belong. Again, my ask is that a public statement be released from the Board of Ed and Superintendent that Board Member Aziz is speaking in her personal capacity and that her personal views do not represent those of the Board of Ed. And second, that the school board and superintendent condemn the specific acts of terrorism committed by Hamas on Israeli civilians. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Allison Kessler. I was debating whether to speak and to give my address, so I'll say it's 901 Central Ave. I'm going to not repeat all of the articulate and incredible statements
Excuse me.
by my former...
Point of order. Point of order. They can't give
Miss
false
Aziz.
addresses.
And you should not
You
be
have to follow
continuing
the
to... Okay, Papa. There it goes. I said it. Okay, so despite that, I will continue to speak. I'm not going to repeat all the amazing and incredible and articulate statements that all those that came before me, and of you, Casey, because you are the light here amongst the school board, and it is refreshing to see that the students have more ability to see the issues and have compassion for others than anyone else on the board. But I do want to reiterate that our students are not safe, and that not just the students, the parents, the whole community, and that as a leader, Dr. Gonzalez, it is your responsibility to make the kids safe, to give them a safe environment to learn. And if you believe that the ongoing events in the Middle East is a proper characterization, I'd like to know if you characterize 9/11 and the terrorist attacks by ISIS as those plane crashes that occurred. Is that how you would have characterized them? Because that's what you're doing here. That's what you have done to our community. And we want you, again, to unequivocally condemn Hamas. And I just want to let you know that your silence has been deafening to our community and has given us a complete lack of feelings of safety in the community. So I have 8 seconds. I will pause. I will yield the rest of my time to you to please speak and tell us what you have heard today and whether you believe that Hamas is a terrorist organization. That's right. Anything. 27, 26, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 9, 8, 7, 6, anything? 3, 2, 1, nothing.
My name is Maya, and I'm going to say I live at CVS. I am here tonight as a resident of Westfield, a parent of a child in the school system with another child entering next year. I'm here to speak up since the board has taken the silence stance. The social media posts, even to this very day, that Member Aziz has the audacity to post being in this public position are deplorable. It is, of course, her choice to be anti-Semitic and anti-Zionist. However, to support a terrorist organization while in a public position is frankly unacceptable. Whether you care to admit it or not, this is a reflection on the board because by standing by and not removing her, not even condemning her words, you are allowing her to vocally support terrorism, keep her position, and by proxy, the Board of Ed is too supporting her statements. For whatever reason, the board is more scared of firing an Islamic anti-Semite than standing up for the many Jews and Israelis in this community. Perhaps her tweet from January of "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free" should have been taken more seriously, and this summer, when she violated the board's attendance policy, she should have been removed. This is a powerful phrase used by radical Islamists to remove Israel from the map. I am a first-generation American. My father fought in the Yom Kippur War. He has passed, and I thank God every day that he is not alive to see what is happening in Israel and what is happening in the community that his Jewish daughter was brought into. Because I think he would drop dead on the spot at how embarrassing all of you are. How is this 2023? At the very least, a statement should have been sent by now that the board does not agree with her radical tweets and posts, and that you unequivocally support Jews in Israel. Why can the mayor, the governor, and the president of the United States all squarely say we stand with Israel, we do not support terrorism, but you cannot? I'm running out of time, so somebody might have to finish for me. I find it impossible to believe that this person is allowed to have a say in our children's education. What lies will she infiltrate our school children with? Your silence will only further promote the message from the Board of Education that you tolerate racism and support the vicious acts of terror currently occurring in Israel. The email sent by you, the superintendent, was blatantly offensive. Your inability to send another email saying everything that should have been said using words like Israel, Jews, massacre, terrorists, not ongoing events in the Middle East is embarrassing. This isn't an event, this isn't a concert, this is real life, and this is terrorist actions. If 9/11 was described as an event, how insensitive would that be? I'm going to skip, and I'm going to leave you with this. A quote by Elie Wiesel: "I swore to never be silent whenever and wherever human beings endure suffering and humiliation. We must take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. Do better."
Mike Beelan, former Westfield Board of Education member. For those of you that don't know me, I served on the Westfield Board of Education for the past 6 years, 4 months, except with Charles Galinas, who was recently elected. Since retiring this past April, I have stayed quiet, but with the recent events in Israel, Ms. Aziz's ongoing tweets that are hurtful to the Westfield Jewish community, and the continuing absences and distractions, I cannot say silent this evening. The Westfield Board of Education meetings are about our school district and educating our students, but the Aziz sideshow has grown to an unimaginable distraction over the past 3 years, and it's time for the board to speak out and take action. Governor Murphy has stated, hate has no home in New Jersey, especially not in our schools. we urge districts and our school communities to promote empathy and understanding during these difficult times and ensure every child feels respected when they learn. It's time for the board to speak out and show we support our students. Speak out that you not condone the divisiveness Board Member Aziz has created in this community with its numerous distractions that have caused us to lose focus on this district-related business. Speak out that you do not condone the social media postings to Ms. Aziz and that you understand how hurtful these postings are to the community. Speak out that you do not condone the false accusations and personal attacks Board Member Aziz has publicly and privately made against board members. Speak out against the board and committee meeting absences that full-time board members would have attended. Speak out that you no longer support using taxpayer-funded attorney fees to address Ms. Aziz's ongoing antics and defend her ethics complaints. I ask this board to take the following actions this evening if Ms. Aziz does not resign. End this distraction once and for all and return the focus of our children to 9 full-time board members. 1, reopen the motion to vote Ms. Aziz off the board based on her absences at a special meeting with the required 48-hour notice. There is precedent in the case of Archie Antoine versus the Roselle Board of Education. The New Jersey Commissioner stated status does not limit the meetings to regular meetings, and the board's policy cannot override the authority afforded by the statute. Reprimand, number 2, reprimand through censure the divisiveness she has created in this community. Per the unanimous Supreme Court decision of David Wilson versus Houston Community College, a reprimand, no matter how strongly worded, does not materially impact freedom of speech. Finally, immediately remove Ms. Aziz from the Curriculum Committee and the Board of Ed representative of the Wilson School. Her divisiveness cannot impact our curriculum and our students. President Biden, Governor Murphy, Senator Booker, Congressman Kane.
Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you. Thank you. At this time, I'm going to close public session, and I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Can I have a second? All in favor?